Good evening. I am Dr. Jaime Rodriguez, Vice President of the Weslaco ISD Board of Trustees. This board workshop is being conducted in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. The board is meeting by the use of Google Meets and telephone transmission, which allows two-way communication for members of the public during public comments. A recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. The time is now 5:46 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. I will now begin the roll call for the board members here. Mrs. Jackie Susaiza?
Present.
Coach Trevino?
Present.
Mr. De Los Santos?
Present.
A quorum, and myself. A quorum is not required for board workshops. Item 3, public comments.
We have two.
And I have on the list, first one on the list, Julie Ann Valdez.
I'm her representative.
As long as she presents by herself, and then you can present, and then you'll have your time also.
So it was just 5 minutes each?
5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes, correct.
So 5, 5, and 5.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. But when she's speaking, it's her 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay? And then you get your 5 minutes afterwards.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Valdez, before you start, gotta just do the formality here. So I'm gonna have you identify yourself with your name and address, and then I'll read a script to you, and then you can start with your 5 minutes, okay?
Okay, understood. My name is Julianne Valdez. I live in 1103 Stone Street, Weslaco, Texas, 78596. Yeah.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, the Board of Trustees may not deliberate on any comment made by a member of the public on a subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. As per the Texas Attorney General, the scope of board discussion for a subject not part of the meeting agenda is limited to only a proposal by a board member to place the subject on a future board agenda. Specific factual information or recitation of existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries, but the board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Audience participation at a board meeting is limited to the portion of the meeting designated for that purpose. At all other times during a board meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board unless recognized by the presiding officer. No public comment presentation shall exceed 5 minutes. Any disruptive behavior by any speaker may result in the speaker's removal from participation in the meeting. Please be mindful of using names or personally identifiable information, as there is no immunity from defamatory comments while participating in public comments. And Mr. Trevino here will keep your 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So you may begin.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you all for showing up and for your dedication, your time. Dr. Coronado, thank you for, your service, and thank you for taking upon this enormous feat of guiding our school district. Today, I'm here to make a comment over the reassigning of positions to accommodate certain individuals. Due to familial relation, compadrismo / cronyism, and political affiliation, despite poor job performance. It has come to my attention that a certain individual was accommodated to a different position due to certain political connections that he may or may not have. This is, of course, allegedly. This individual abused his position while as a principal of a campus to manipulate and order a hiring committee of a certain assistant principal or facilitator. I'm not sure what the position is called anymore. He has allegedly threatened students years ago, and I have proof that I'm going to supply to the school board via email screenshots of these allegations from former students that say that he actually threaten them with their graduation eligibility or their ability to walk across the stage or something like that. He also placed the safety of students and staff in danger during his tenure as principal. For this, I will refer you to, I will send you a picture, and for the part where he manipulated a hiring committee, look at page 40 of the Weaver Tidwell report. It's on there. This special attention and entitlement this individual enjoys is truly mind-boggling due to the aforementioned reasons I've said, and demonstrates inequitable treatment amongst employees of the district. If this person is accommodated, then all employees should be treated the same. Even if one individual is accommodated, or one employee is accommodated, then everyone deserves the same privilege as that one individual. By treating people the same, you respect them, regardless of their education level, titles, age, job position, or whom you may know. So please act with kindness. When you are restructuring and reassigning positions, please be transparent. Hold people accountable where it needs to be. Be consistent. Please be respectful, and most of all, be nice.
Thank you. Okay, next on the list, I have Rosie Cavazos. For these 5 minutes. These will be your 5 minutes.
I'll cover what, that's okay. I will talk about your stuff if you run out or you choke up or whatever.
Yeah,
I'll take care of it.
I want her to be my representative. I'm
She'll
sorry.
get
I've
some
been
funds.
sick, and I need for her to be here.
Let's go ahead and get your name and address, ma'am, please.
My name is Rosie Cavazos, 5815 Cenizo Drive, Weslaco.
Thank you. Do I need to read the script again? Read the script? Okay. Let me go ahead and read you the script, okay, ma'am? So pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, the Board of Trustees may not deliberate on any comment made by a member of the public on a subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. As per the Texas Attorney General, the scope of board discussion for a subject not part of the meeting agenda is limited to only proposal by a board member to place the subject on a future board agenda. Specific factual information or recitation of the existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries, but the board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Audience participation at a board meeting is limited to the portion of the meeting designated for that purpose. At all other times during a board meeting, the audience should not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board, unless recognized by the presiding officer. No public comment presentation shall exceed 5 minutes. Any disruptive behavior by any speaker may result in the speaker's removal from participation in the meeting. Please be mindful of using names or personally identifiable information, as there is no immunity from defamatory comments while participating in public comments. And we'll go ahead and start with your 5 minutes, ma'am.
Okay. I would like to request for Ms. Diana Garza to be next to me.
She can stand next to you as long as you're the only one presenting, ma'am. And then she can present, she'll have 5 minutes after you.
But she's my
She-
representative.
She can stand next to you.
Does that mean you can't speak for me?
Well, I guess not.
Oh.
Go ahead and say, you can say, you can start off.
Okay.
She's first, you know what? Hold on, let her speak. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm here because I'm one of those that got demoted after 42 years with the district. 22 years as an assistant superintendent. I did not deserve this at all. And because of what was done to me, I am struggling. Struggling because the abuse doesn't stop. It does not stop. And I'm very upset that I contact board members and nobody helped me. We voted for you, guys, and you let us down. Not only me, but all those innocent people that was destroyed. Their lives were destroyed like mine. I am handicapped, and that didn't matter to any of them. And I am very sick since that happened to me. And I did not deserve that at all. Nobody deserved to be demoted. And the people that got promoted, they commit fraud. They leave whenever they want to without making the time. And they were promoted because they're friends of somebody at central office. And there was one lady that was doing illegal stuff within the school district. And she was never terminated, even though she was reported several times. But we didn't do anything. And what happened to us? We got demoted. Demoted. Where is the justification? 22 years in this district, in this office, with 42 as a whole. I work hard to get to where I am. And in my grievance, I was rented a remedy of keeping my title and my salary. And what happened? It was stripped away from me. Stripped away from me. And my level 3 was never processed, so it was violated also. My due process was violated. I hope so, because I have not been notified. So I just wanted to let you all know what happened to us is hard. No, they never rescheduled my level 3. What they did was demote me, change my title, and put me in a campus where it's very dangerous for me as a handicap, because I can get hurt. Oh yeah, my level 3 was scheduled on March 19th, and it was postponed due to my...
Even though she's retired?
Well, that's what I wanted to let you all know, that our lives were destroyed. Completely. I am struggling because we haven't had a pay in almost 2 months because there was a delay at HR because of a mistake they did. And my husband got punished for it. And up to this day, I have not received my sick leave day, so I've been with no pay. I'm about to lose my vehicles because of this. And I don't think it's fair. We work hard to be in these positions so that somebody can come and just throw us like trash to our campus. And Horton DAP is not for me because of my handicap, but then again, they didn't care. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I have Diana Garza. Go ahead and identify yourself, ma'am.
Diana Garza, 1011 East 10th Street.
Script. Okay, let me go ahead and read the script, okay?
Huh?
Let me go ahead and read the script here.
Probably
before-
have it
before you
memorized,
start.
but go ahead, sir.
Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, the Board of Trustees may not deliberate on any comment made by a member of the public on a subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. As per the Texas Attorney General, the scope of board discussion for a subject not part of the meeting agenda is limited to only a proposal by a board member to place the subject on a future board agenda. Specific factual information or recitation of existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries, but the board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. Audience participation at a board meeting is limited to the portion of the meeting designated for that purpose. At all other times during a board meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board unless recognized by the presiding officer. No public comment presentation shall exceed 5 minutes. Any disruptive behavior by any speaker may result in the speaker's removal from participation in the meeting. Please be mindful of using names or personally identifiable information, as there is no immunity from defamatory comments while participating in public comments. And you may now begin, ma'am.
All right, so good evening, school board and Superintendent Dr. Coronado. And I see that there's quite a bit of incumbents missing, but good evening to you all as well. The incumbents that are not here at a very important workshop. So anyway, Rosie Cavazos, that's a perfect example of kindness. And we have gotten so many emails about practicing kindness. So I don't know, it doesn't match. It doesn't match to take advantage of a handicapped person that has no political ties. No political ties, nobody in her corner but me. And there's a custodian also that was supposed to come over here and is not here also, that has been mistreated. Is it about, maybe it's having to do with age? Who knows? And just for the record, I got reassigned myself. To all the parents out there, I'm here to serve you. I will continue to serve you to the best of my ability, to the children. I am, let me see, I have a long title. Student Attendance Intervention Counselor. So for all of you watching out there, parents, find me. I'm still here. The reassignment had nothing to do with me. I didn't ask for it. For you all counselors out there saying, why you? That is a question that you can ask Dr. Coronado, HR, that had nothing to do with me. So I didn't ask for it, but wherever they put me, I will continue to work to the best of my ability. They can send me to wash buses. My children will go to school and clean buses. That's the work ethic that I have, and my track record speaks for itself. So with that being said, there was a custodian that got reassigned after being at an elementary school where I was at for 16 years. She's been asking why. There was no answer. The only thing I can come up with is that she was a good friend of mine. I respect her. She's a widow. She has one son that's in the military, nobody to fend for her. She got reassigned to a campus, to a middle school where she cries. She was supposed to be here today, but she had a doctor's appointment. She calls me and cries every night that she's gonna die there if they don't move her. On July 25th, well, before everybody went on break, administrators, she called and spoke to somebody. That person told her, I'm gonna see you on July 25th. Yesterday was August 8th, and that's because I kept telling her, hey, you need to go. You need to go. They kept giving her the runaround at central office. Finally, 3 gentlemen met with her, 3 males in ties with this poor single lady. I can just imagine how intimidated she was. Speaks very little English, okay? I don't know if you all have mothers, but you know what? You're blessed if you have a mother, because I lost mine at the age of 4. She's somebody's mother whose son is serving our country. No political ties whatsoever. And they're doing that to her. That really, really upsets me. I wanna understand kindness here. Okay? Nobody in her corner but me. Okay? I called central office yesterday. I said, there's a board meeting coming up. Nobody has paid attention to her. Nobody has given her no answers as to why she got reassigned. The only thing I can come up with is that she's my good friend, that she reported another custodian that would hide for hours, but that other custodian has ties. That person stayed, she got moved. Okay? Nobody has been able to answer why. Okay, enough of that kindness. The next thing is secretaries, okay? All the clerks that got reassigned, all but 2, and they're old in age, older, they got sent to paraprofessionals, okay? 2 paraprofessionals at campuses. All the young ones, clerks, and they put those 2 old. I don't know if it's in an effort to push them out, because I know I met with Dr. Coronado in the summer, and he saved the district $4 million. And some, he said, retired, some left, whatever. I guess some got pushed out. I don't know if that was the motive for me, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm here to continue to serve the beautiful children and parents of this district to the best of my ability, and staff that needs my help. Okay? I've been called, you can't be a mouthpiece. Sure I can. God didn't make us all the same. Somebody needs to stand up for what's right. And I don't think that this that's been going on is showing kindness, because we've been getting a lot of emails about kindness. So I'm trying to figure out what they mean. There's directors with 2 secretaries and some without any. okay? Then there's somebody somebody from central office that was a clerk became secretary, okay? I don't know what ties or what. But let's be fair here. Let's be fair, firm, and consistent.
Your
Those
Honor,
are the
that's 5
favorite words
minutes.
of Dr. Rivera, former
5 minutes, ma'am.
superintendent.
Thank you.
God bless all of you. Thank you so much for doing the right thing, okay? God bless.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, discussion discussion on district personnel and organizational structure. Dr. Coronado?
Dr. Rodriguez and members of the board, I'd like to, at your request, I'd like to answer some questions regarding the district personnel, the move, the reorganization, and a lot of things that happened in the last, I guess, 4 months or so. So again, you know, in Weslaco, we always call it the right choice, and I firmly believe we are the only choice. Our recent enrollment numbers are coming in terms of preliminary numbers, and we will far exceed what we did last year. So clearly we are the only choice. We're doing a lot of great things. Our campus principals, their staffs, their teams, as well as the central office team is doing very well. First, I'd also like to thank you all for asking for this workshop. This is an opportunity for us to really showcase our transparency in some of the changes that were made. And so during the next, I guess, few minutes or so, next 30 minutes or to an hour, I'm going to, keep this open, be very transparent in all this. And again, I want to thank you for your support since I've been here. And, change is hard. And so let's go ahead and get started with our next slide here. This is the agenda that I'm going to discuss, our purpose, definitions, some guiding policies and documents. And again, 3 of the things that were asked for was, 1, the central office leadership structure by person upon my arrival versus where we're at now. And again, then a report on all personnel transfers, lateral transfers, reassignments, promotions, and appointments. There were no demotions since I've been here. And in fact, there's been some title changes, and I'll discuss that. And then also the school safety plan. I know that's on the forefront of everybody's mind, and then open this up to questions. I think this is, of all slides that are going to be presented, this is the #1 slide. We're all here for kids, and right now we're dealing with adult concern. But amongst all other things that we're dealing with increased safety, increased security, COVID, the pandemic, staff development training, onboarding new employees, recruiting and marketing our district. And all this in an effort to serve the children of Weslaco and the Rio Grande Valley. This is our primary purpose. And I'm going to reference some policies here. And so just to go over some of those policies, I'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So as many folks know, in board policy, there are 2. If you go to Weslaco ISD policy online, and I'll show the screenshot of what that looks like, right? There are 2 sets of policies. There's legal and local. Legal is by statute. Local, the local policies are decisions made by the board. So anytime we talk about let's say, for example, DFFA local, right? That means that's a policy that was adopted by members of this board. Now, if it was DFFA legal, we know that that's by statute. So I'm going to reference some of the policies. BJA, legal and local, BBE, local, BBF, legal, BBFB, legal, DC, legal and local, right? Next slide. DFFA, legal, DK, legal and local. We're also going to reference the forensic audit that happened on September 10th, 2021. My contract, which was dated March 31st, 2022. The TASB staffing review, April 2022, and the TASB pay system review in May of 2022. These are the guiding documents that help myself and the team prepare for this particular workshop. Now, board members, you have in the purple folder, you have all of the policies as well as all the personnel in question. And we'll talk about that. I didn't list any names on this PowerPoint, but we'll discuss this at length. Next. So for those watching at home, again, there's the website that you can go to, and you can just go ahead and go to a specific policy code. Now, just kind of as an overview on how policies are set up, all A, B, C, A through G policies, they're done specifically. So all board policies in terms of local government start with a B, all personnel start with a D, instruction are E, and F are students. So those are the primarily policies that start with. So this is just kind of an overview of when people want to look for specific policy online, that's just where to go. Next. So let's talk about some definitions. There are a lot of definitions used in the TASB study, the Weaver report, policy, and so forth. TASB talks about absorbing. Absorbing meaning consolidating or merging of two or more positions to perform the same functions. So in other words, we have two office clerks, we want to go to one office clerk, we've absorbed one position. That's just an example. Attrition is the departure of an employee however they leave. So whether it's voluntary, involuntary, death, or retirement. So just kind of an example of what natural attrition is. Nepotism, that was kind of a definition that I wanted to bring up. That is described in BBFB legal, and which means that it's by law and which is statute. So in our own policy, BBFB legal, if those want to follow along online, they can look that up. But nepotism is actually described as except provided by law, a public official may not appoint, confirm the appointment or vote for the appointment or confirmation of the appointment of an individual to a position that is to be directly or indirectly compensated from public funds or fees of office if, and then there's the definition of nepotism, right? Since the board, according to policy, retains the hiring, you are the hiring authority, and we're going to discuss this at length. So you maintain the hiring authority. Next. Then onboarding. So the process in which new hires are integrated into the organization. This is something new for us. HR has probably done a bunch of things, but now it's called onboarding. So basically, and I'll describe what our HR process is and in accordance with policy DC. And then again, reduction in force, or what we call as a RIF. A RIF occurs when a position is eliminated with no intention of replacing it. So in other words, once we close a position, that's it. There's no intent of replacing it, and it's a permanent cut. Okay, so here we go. Central office leadership structure by person, 2021, 2022 versus the current. So I came in my first day was April 4th, and I'm going to show you exactly what I was faced with in terms of the structure. Now I want to preface this, that this and by no means is there any fault. There is no fault of the current employees. There's no fault of the board, right? This is, as was, right? That was then, and this is now. Again, I always remind our folks, right? It may not be our fault, but now it's our problem now. So what we're trying to do is move forward, right? There's no sense in looking in the rearview mirror and trying to figure out whose fault and start pointing fingers. The idea here is that we're here to provide a service to children. Kids are at the forefront of everything that we do. So I just wanted to preface that. So here's what I faced specifically when I arrived. This was the structure that was listed. The folks that you see in red were direct reports to the superintendent of schools. Again, a direct report. The superintendent had oversight of those specific people. So if you look at that, it was 4 assistant superintendents and 4 executive directors. There were 24 directors. So the leadership team of the district comprised of approximately well, not approximately, it comprised of 32 people. So understand that, it was 32, 24 directors, 4 executive directors, and 4 assistant superintendents. Next. This is right out of the Weaver report, right? It specifically states that they determined that, and I'm going to read this just, and I normally don't read slides, but I'm going to read this just so that we can kind of keep on track here. We determined that the district's organizational structure lacks functional alignment and exhibits inconsistencies across job assignments that are not necessarily aligned to the strategic needs of the district. In some cases, it appeared that the district modified the organizational structure to fit certain individuals rather than the organization as a whole. Now look at number 1 down there. 8 individuals reported directly to the superintendent, right? It appears to be above average when compared to similar school districts. Look at bullet number 2. 4 different organizations: business and finance, support services, employee benefits, and risk management, and athletics and district facilities. Where was the mention of children? It wasn't. Okay? Assistant superintendent for support services is poorly defined, functionally misaligned, and responsible for an inconsistent scope of work. Executive director of athletics and district facility position combines 2 broad scopes of responsibility with minimal functional connection. So that's what I was faced coming in. During the interview, one of the first questions you asked me is, have you seen the report? And clearly every candidate has read the entire 159-page report. So I'm going to use this as a leverage piece on how we reorganize the district. Now, I will say this publicly. Dr. Valdez did an excellent job of leaving me a lot of work, and very good work. She had already started a restructure of the organization. I walked in, there was a whiteboard, there were stickies all over the place, there were things moving around, and so there were the beginnings of a reorganization based on this report. So I want to thank her for that start, right? Clearly, there was a direction to move the organization into a different direction where the organization was more functional. Next.
Sir, I had a quick question.
Yes, and yes, feel free to chime in anytime.
You mentioned earlier that you said, where does it mention children? What did you mean by that? I just want to clarify that.
So in the way the organization was structured, if you can go back to the original structure.
Oh, no, to the Weaver. No, in the
Oh,
Weaver slide, you said, where does it mention children? But I
Right.
was just curious as to what does that mean? What does that imply to?
So in other words, the organization was focused on adults rather than kids. How did we support the schools? And if you look at this, how did we support schools? They're not even on here.
Is it fair to say that by having a Weaver report, having an audit, that it identifies, like you said, in a structure that doesn't support schools or kids, and you can see that there's a lack of funding that's going to those classes because they're spending it in areas that aren't going to be productive or have any kind of input into academics or growth?
Absolutely. Our primary focus of revenues is on kids. And so we want to make sure that our structure is here. And I've always said this, the strength of the district has to be its campuses. That's where the kids are. And so the organization doesn't allow, if you look at what's left on the left here, assistant superintendent of elementary and assistant superintendent of secondary, the principals are thrown in there with a bunch of other things, okay? So there was no support system for campuses, okay? So you're correct, I used the Weaver report as leverage and as guidance based on your guidance as board members, and then based on, for the public's knowledge here, I met with each one of you individually. And sir, remember with you, we were here till midnight, so it was a great conversation.
Yes, it was.
Right? So, but I did meet with board members individually upon my arrival. So, but again, this clearly, and again, next slide, please. So, the Weaver report had stated that we needed to change structurally. Dr. Valdez understood that piece. But again, as the interim, you're just the interim, and having been an interim, you only can make certain changes. You're there to keep your head above water, right? So here was the change. right? That we made. Now, this was done not in a vacuum. I just didn't go in there and wake up one day and say, this is what we're gonna do. This was a lot of work between some really good folks that I trust. And not only that I trust locally, but also my mentors as well, exterior to the district. So there are currently 6 direct report to the superintendent. Now, in theory, there's actually 9. And the reason I say 9 is because I have a superintendent secretary, which is not listed in the other one. The board has a secretary that answers to the board, but she falls under me. And then we have a switchboard operator that sits in the front. But those are in terms of the administrative staff. Now, in terms of the leadership itself, we have 3 assistant superintendents for, 2 assistant superintendents for school leadership, 1 assistant superintendent for teaching, learning, and innovation. And then we have a deputy superintendent who really controls the operational and maintenance piece of the district. We also have the executive director of district communications, who is taking care of all of our marketing, communications, PIO, just a myriad of things that they take care of, and then also the director of athletics. So again, so we've gone from 8 direct reports to the superintendent to just 6. Now, what's the significance of that? Well, and I will say this. I want you to understand, I want you to go, can you go back to the very first one, please? There you go. Organizational chart, board of trustees, superintendent. Go to my slide, please. Weslaco Community Board of Trustees, Superintendent, right? You have a constituency that you are responsible for, right? We work for the Weslaco community and their families, and I want to make that very clear that we added that. So next slide. Here's the leadership difference, okay? So 2021, 22, 4 assistant soups, 4 executive directors, 24 directors. Now, I've been in some pretty large districts, right? And it's been there's a common practice to never have more directors than principals, right? We have 18 principals. We should never have more than 18 directors. So, our current structure, 1 deputy superintendent, 3 assistant superintendents, 5 executive directors, and only 8 directors. So what we did was, if you're an assistant soup or higher, you get an administrative assistant, right? Directors have to share an office clerk. And I'm going to go into detail with some of that. Next slide. So this is the cost difference. Now, I'm going to always throw money at this. So the previous leadership team, again, the 8 folks, a little over $1 million. Now remember, we did a 3% pay raise. We shuffled some folks around, right? And we only have 6 people have a direct report to the superintendent at the cost of $839,000. Even with cost adjustments and the new salary schedule, the compensation plan, we're still saving $223,000 just in the direct reports to the superintendent. Next slide. So this is what the rest of it looks like, and I'm going to break this down a little bit more, right? As you can see, the assistant superintendent for school leadership, Team Wildcat, which is the Weslaco East feeder pattern schools, and then Weslaco High, which is the Team Panther feeder pattern, right? So now we basically added a layer between all of the principals and the superintendent to directly support the principals firsthand. They will take care of grievances, discipline hearings, coaching principals. They do a myriad of things to make sure that the superintendent or the principal have everything that they need. Hopefully they get everything that they want. Underneath our deputy superintendent, Abel Aguilar, you know, my right hand and sometimes half of my left, I would tell you that I reach out to Abel because he has the institutional knowledge of this district more than anybody I know. Mr. Aguilar and I, there isn't probably a day that goes by to include Saturday and Sunday, that we don't text or talk on the phone. We are constantly working together. And so for that, Mr. Aguilar, I want to thank you, all right, for everything that you've done to make the transition for this district just a phenomenal experience. So thank you publicly. So under ABLE, Mr. Aguilar, we have 4 executive directors. The executive director for business and finance, the executive director for technology, an executive director for maintenance and operations, and then an executive director for human resources. Again, when I arrived here before, we actually had 2 directors of human resource. So we changed that and got only 1 executive director for human resource. Now we have the assistant superintendent for teaching, learning, and innovation. Some would call this the chief academic officer. Some would call this a superintendent for instruction or assistant superintendent for instruction. Some would call this a superintendent of just everything else that we don't know what we're going to do. We're going to just give it to her. So one of the things that I had tasked Ms. Lisa Gomez, our assistant superintendent for teaching, learning, and innovation, I said, Ms. Gomez, I'm going to give you a lot of responsibility with very little authority. You know, you're going to have to use the powers of persuasion, right, to convince, right, the assistant superintendents for school leadership and principals to coexist in instructional delivery. So she does that with some help. So if you look at most of the directors, most of the directors actually fall under the assistant sup for what we call TLI. So what we're going to do is on the next slide, you're going to actually see the breakdown of how every directorship and executive directorship kind of is broken down. So next. So there's the director of athletics. Again, what we've done was they each have an athletic director. Now, what we've tried to do is we really don't split the district in 2, but we just make it more manageable. So we have a Panther line and we have a Wildcat line. And those athletic coordinators, we want to be able to use all coaching staffs, for example, from the line, right? And we didn't do this in a vacuum, so we're still in transition. It's going to take a couple years to kind of clean those lines up. But the idea here is that they can control their own. Next. Here is the deputy superintendent, and you see executive director, the 4 executive directors that Mr. Aguilar is open to. And again, you see here, he has 1 administrative assistant. Now, I will tell you, some of the offices, and we're going to get to this, we'll get to the down and dirty. Some of the offices that you had here had administrative assistants, 2 administrative assistants, right, plus 2 or 3 different office clerks. There were over 60 people just in this building. Right now, today, there are 27. 27 people just in this building. We've made a significant change. Next slide. Here is our business and finance, right? We have the compliance auditor, purchasing manager, and again, I'm not going to read all of this to you. 3 accounts payable clerks, a buyer, and so forth. Next. Here's our executive director of technology. I know that looks kind of hard to read, and again, I can send you copies of all of this as well. Next. Here's our executive director of maintenance and operations, and then we have director of maintenance.
Is Rosemary here? Can we get these copies here? Because there's no way I can even read that.
Yes, we can.
No way.
Those are ones that were emailed to.
Yes,
I had updated it. I sent it to Carlos ×2, Dorlisa, but I didn't send it to you. Okay.
So you have executive director of maintenance and operations.
Right, and then we split the 2. So under executive director of maintenance and operations, we have a director of maintenance, and then can you go to the next slide? And then we have a director of operations. And then we have the director of food services.
So when
Car-
when I'm
I'm
looking
s-
at when I'm looking at these blue bullets, transportation, warehouse, safety and security, food and nutrition, that blue is a person. Then, like it just says warehouse office clerk, so warehouse doesn't.
So
have
that's a
director?
department. So underneath, you see that there's a transportation manager, and then under warehouse, there's just an office clerk, right? Under safety and security,
There's a
the
supervisor.
manager. So the green is the actual person.
Oh, you
The
got-
blue is the department,
Okay, and then the two supervisors there. Okay, I was just looking to see who the
okay?
leadership was there. Okay.
Yeah. The green is the actual human, right? And then the blue is just the department. And we actually put the numbers actually inside the, there, so you can see, food services, we have 3 bookkeepers, we have 2 food service delivery drivers, 17 cafeteria managers, obviously for each campus. Kitchen clerks, we have 79 cooks, 1 head cook, a baker, 10 attendants. So you can see we've broken down by numbers. You can see transportation, we have assistant transportation route supervisors times 2. And again, we have currently 47 bus drivers, which we're doing very well. We've stolen, well, not stolen, I don't want to say that's a bad word, right? We've recruited, and acquired and attracted quite a few bus drivers, and I think that has to do with the salaries that we have. Okay, next slide. Here's our executive director for human resources. Right,
Doctor,
again,
going back to
I'm sorry?
to your other slides.
Yes.
So on some of these director of operations, which one of these are new, or did you appoint the new directors, or how did they get appointed in some of these new departments, or how things are broken down?
So we actually posted those positions, and we had interviews. A lot of our, and again, and I'm gonna, when I get to a specific slide here on the TASB study, right now, I just wanted to show you the organizational pieces because that was your request. And so as we get down, when we get to the TASB study, right, you're gonna see a totally different picture on why, okay? Next slide, please. Here's the Executive Director for Human Resources. Now, we have 2 human resource administrators, again, one for the Panther line, one for the Wildcat line. They used to be broken up a little bit differently. We used to have risk management and employee benefits manager. And it was actually an executive director. I'm not sure exactly why, and why that was a direct report to the superintendent. But it's even in the Weaver report, it states that it's actually an HR function. And then we have an employee relations manager position. And so what we did with that one was we had an assistant superintendent who used to take care of a lot of our grievance, employee relations type issues. So what we did is we didn't want it, that position was vital. It is a vacant position now. We don't have it filled.
Which one is that one?
The employee relations manager. Okay, that we don't have that filled, and also a human resource administrator. That's also a vacancy too.
And how many, so out of all these, which ones are new? The human resources administrators?
The
those are
human
new?
resources administrator is new. They used to be called something else. Lisa's not here. They used to be called something else.
So how was that? Did you post an interview for that, or was that just?
Well, we had one person that was in the office already that we assigned as the human resources administrator, and we'll go over names here in a bit.
Okay.
And then the other one we posted.
But when you assigned them, what do you mean you assigned them?
They were available. So in other words, they were in a like position, and so we went ahead and appointed that person.
You appointed them?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a mid?
When did you appoint that
Person.
person? I'm sorry. Go ahead, just-
It was in.
I will get to it later.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have
We
the
can
names
keep
here.
going through the slides.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a minimum, mid, and max on all of these positions?
That's correct. Right, so when TASB gave the study, prior to the TASB study and adopting of the compensation plan, there used to be steps. So if you can remember, it was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it was the number of years of experience, and then you fell into, based on the years of experience, you got paid X, right, based on that years of experience. What TASB suggested that we do is that we have a minimum, mid, and max. So in other words, now you have a pay grade. And what it does, it allows you to, everything is based on the midpoint. And then, so we determine, and typically it's 25 years, right? 25 years is the minimum, well, excuse me. So the minimum, right, is 0, and the max is based on 25 years. 25 years of experience. Most districts cap their salary ranges at 25 years of experience, right? There's been numerous studies about this, but 25 years typically is the max. Some districts actually go to 30, but normally, right, the cap is at 25 years. Okay. Next. This is the Assistant Superintendent for School Leadership. Again, just one administrative assistant. I want to make this is very clear. Some of the assistant superintendents that we had here before had up to, 3 or 4 office staffs and clerks. Right? I don't know what they did. And so now they have one. That's it. Next. And there's Team Panther again. It mirrors each other. They have one administrative assistant. Next slide. This is Ms. Lopez or Ms. Gomez. This is her director of teaching, learning, assistant superintendent for teaching at what we call TLI. And these are her directors. And what you see in the blue box is actually the department under her that she's responsible for. And then you can see the actual positions. Now, this is all of the people that she's responsible for. All right, hiring of personnel. Here we go. Weaver report. From our investigation of the district's hiring practice going back to September 2014, we identified a pattern of micromanagement by the board to influence the hiring process, especially during the 2014 through 2016 time period. All right, I'm not going to read the rest of it. I'm sure everybody else knows where this is at and where they can find this. This is posted online. I will tell you, since I've been here, not one board member has ever come to me to tell me to hire somebody. Or they've never told me to fire somebody or non-renew. In fact, on the contrary, upon my arrival, I was here April 4th. There was a board meeting 10 days later. There was a list for non-renewal. Now, I said no. My recommendation was that everybody gets a fresh start. So I actually went against the team that had been here and made those recommendations, and I said no. Now, this was in mid-April. Here I am, 2 weeks into the job, and I was going to recommend non-renewal for employees, and I said no. I don't know if I still regret that decision, but it was a decision that I made. So I'm going to go back to the hiring process, and because this summary of finding regarding the hiring of personnel is policy driven by policy DK. I'm sorry, it's DC. Can we go to the slide, please? Next slide. This is DC. Now, it states here that the superintendent has this, and this is DC local. It states here that the superintendent has sole authority to make recommendations to the board regarding the selection of personnel. Now, there's a paragraph in here that is somewhat contradicted to a policy in the board in the board policy, and it states here the board retains final authority for the employment of contractual and non-contractual personnel. Now, if you go to, hope I can find it here.
That's for the one of the last pages. Here.
under BBFB legal, it states counties with population 35,000 or more. If, under the district's employment policy, DC, which is what we're referring to, the board delegates to the superintendent the final authority to select district personnel. The superintendent is the public official for the purposes of nepotism prohibitions of Government Code Chapter 573, only with respect to a decision made under that delegation of authority, and each member of the board remains subject to the nepotism prohibitions with respect to all district employees. We're in Hidalgo County. We have more than 35,000 people. Yet, as a superintendent, I do not have the hiring authority. I want to make that very clear. All right? I do not have hiring authority contrary to BBFB legal.
But then who appoints?
So that's under DK. I'm going to go to that one next. Okay? This is only for hiring practices. Okay? So
New hires.
for brand new hires.
Brand new hires.
Okay? Now remember, employment practices, DC local only refers to hiring of new personnel. All right? Okay?
Not position.
Not positions. So, next slide, please. So, here is the hiring policy, or here's the hiring flow chart that was enacted in June of 2022. This is for policy DC, new hires. Again, check budget availability, confirm vacancy needed. If approved, post the position. Candidate submits online application via WISD applicant portal until position closes. HR reviews applications for completion, qualifications, and releases qualified applicants to campus department leaders. Next, principals or the department director selects applicants and interviewing committee. Now, that's when they return the list to HR then conducts the background checks. So let's say in theory, they want to select 10 people. HR now, let's say 20 people applied. They want to interview 10 folks. HR now conducts the background on the 10 people that they want to select. There's no sense in doing background checks on 20 people because we pay that fee. We want to interview these 10 folks. HR does the background check, and this has happened, right? Okay, only 8 came back clean. You can only interview 8, okay? Now, interview committee conducts an interview and makes a recommendation to HR. HR conducts reference checks for the candidate and prepares a recommendation for the superintendent review, right? Once I review, right, I confirm the salary, right, and then we prepare it for board approval at the next available board meeting, right? Once you approve, as you have done before, HR notifies the campus or the department of approval or denial, and so far nobody's been denied. If approved, we offer the candidate the position and the salary that they applied for. Now, the candidate accepts, HR onboards new personnel, right? Getting their started, getting on board, getting their insurance, getting all of the HR stuff done, right? And then if the candidate denies, of course, then we start the process all over. Okay? So again, that is the current hiring process. HR is not involved in the selection. They are not involved in the interview. They are not involved in anything. I have delegated all of that to the principal and the departments. Okay? The only people that I, as a superintendent, interview, the only people will be the direct reports to me, which includes the 6 cabinet members, which are filled, and principals. However, for principals, I only interview the top 3. That's it. Right? There's no need for me to interview 10 people. Right? They go through that committee process, and I interview the top 3.
I was going to ask, I know that before you came on board and we had the audit report, and I think Mr. Buttermer and Zavala had just came on and they got selected for work at HR. We discussed, in reference to the audit, to avoid having that situation, because before you saw that people, for critical positions, not for all, I don't want to say every campus and every employee in the district was manipulated in some way, because, but the critical positions, and in fact across all departments, is just in certain cases, you saw that hiring committees were 2 or 3 And so that's something that we talked when they came on board. You weren't here yet. Dr. Valdez was here, and we asked as a board that we see at the minimum 8 or more. And I know that sometimes that's a strain on campuses and departments, but it's actually coming out of what we came out of, you know, in that micromanagement, especially in the hiring process, it being manipulated for so many years. We just wanted to ensure that everybody had a fair chance and a fair opportunity. So are we still practicing that, of 8 or more, that we're
Yes.
telling departments and campuses?
And so what we've done, if you see that cart over there, if you're welcome to look at here. I'll stay here as long as you want. We'll keep it open. We'll make sure the air conditioner on is a miracle. We'll make sure the AC's on. It
On
works,
now.
thank you, right? And if you want to look at every single file for every single new hire, by all means, I'll sit here with you. Doralisa, sorry, since you're HR, so you're gonna have to stay with me, right? But you're welcome to look at every one of those folders, okay?
We've heard nothing but good things about the actual hiring process. And a lot of staff has reached out too, even though in some cases they weren't selected, they said, hey, it was fair. It's something they hadn't seen in a long time. And so, and that's something, of course, that we got from the audit, and that's something that the board decided on as far as, you know, asking if the district could do. So I will tell you that, the staff has responded that when they go to an interview, they know they're just not going for practice anymore. They know they actually have a shot. So as far as new hires, that's not an issue.
So, but that's policy DC,
Oh, yes.
okay? That's policy DC, right? Cooking with grease here, but that's a good thing, okay? All right, next slide. All right, report on all personnel transfers, lateral transfers, reassignments, promotions, and appointments. No one was demoted. In terms of what we're talking about here with the list you have, no one was demoted, and I'm gonna show all of you the process. Next slide. This was the driving force. This was the TASB staffing review in April 2022. All right, this was presented to the board in May, but this was the driving piece. We are overstaffed by 168 people at the cost of $6.5 million. I want everybody to understand that. We were overstaffed based on our current enrollment. We were overstaffed by 168 people. I want you to look at the clerical staff. Absorption of 30 non-campus clerical positions at the cost of $1.2 million. Instructional staff, absorption of 20 educational aides. Look at the number of teachers. We were over 27 teachers, 27 middle school teachers, 4.5 high school teachers. The only place we were short was in special education. Okay? Look at the auxiliary workers. Absorption of 25 maintenance workers, 8 groundkeepers, 10 cafeteria workers. So, in getting here and looking at our finances, which needed some attention, it could have been easy for anyone to say, okay, we're going to do a RIF, which is what? A reduction in force. According to TASB, right, or the TASB study, these would have been the first ones to be absorbed. Now, I will say this. If we look at absorption in accordance with our own policy for DFFA local, reduction in force. The superintendent shall apply the following criteria to employees with an affected employment area when a reduction in force will not result in a non-renewal or discharge of all staff in the employment area. This is the criteria, 1 through 5. 1, qualifications. 2, performance. 3, extra duties. 4, professional background. 5, seniority. In Texas, we're an at-will state. Seniority is not a player. Okay? But it states here, DFFA local. Qualifications, performance, extra duty, professional background, and seniority. So, we could have done the RIF following this guideline, which is DFFA local. Yet, how many people did we RIF? 0. We RIFed 0 people. No one lost their job. In fact, if you look at the list, right, you will see everyone actually got a pay raise. Every person that was reassigned actually got a pay raise. And you're probably thinking, well, gee whiz, Dino, you come in, you see that we have 168 extra people, and yet you still give everybody a pay raise. Well, yes. That's what kindness came in, right? Next slide.
Sir?
Yes.
So, wait, what person are you talking about when you said that everyone that got reassigned, everyone got a pay raise?
Everyone got a pay raise. Okay?
That's everyone.
So, here is policy DK. And this is the difference. Remember, we talked about DC was hiring, new hires. DK, right, is the assignment and schedules. Here's the authority of the superintendent. All personnel are employed. In other words, they've already been hired. All personnel are employed subject to assignment and reassignment by the superintendent or designee when the superintendent determines that the assignment or reassignment is in the best interest of the district. Reassignment shall be defined as a transfer to another position, department, or facility that does not necessitate a change in the employment contract of the contract employee. Right? Our hourly folks are not on contract. Any change in an employee's contract shall be in accordance with policy DC, which is this policy. Okay? So again, I'd like to also note there are requested reassignments and then involuntary reassignments. Now, some of these are specifically towards contracted personnel. Those personnel are on Chapter 21 contracts. And we have a situation, and I'll go over that. Next slide, please. So here we go. In 2021-22, we had 2,325 employees, of which 1,078 were teachers. For that year, we attrited, in other words, they left, right, for some other reason, we attrited 256 people. We filled 109 of those positions, and we absorbed 76 positions at the savings of $3 million. Now, we still have vacancies, manual trade. So what I did by manual trade vacancies, it's our bus drivers, it's our groundskeeper, custodians. Remember, Tasby said we were short 2 custodians. So there are a variety of vacancies, existing vacancies that we had. So I want to add that these vacancies, we have already pre-encumbered the funding. So pre-encumbered means we've allocated the funding already for these 70 positions, okay? 71 positions. 47 vacancies, 20 instructional aid positions. Most of those are in the special ed area, and 4 teacher vacancies, right? So in other words, we have allocated the funding for those positions already. Now, here we are. Our teachers came back yesterday. We're going to start the 2022-2023 school year with 2,216 employees, 1,006 teachers, right? Now, what I want you to go to is your list that I gave you of personnel. It's a 2-page list here. I'm sorry for the small print. I tried to make this 1 page wide by 3, and it came out that way. But so this is the list of all employee changes. There's been 74 changes. 13 were lateral, right? In other words, from one position to another. 8 were promotions. 49 reassignments and voluntary reassignments for 4. Now, I'm going to say this, right, for the record. 4 people volunteered to go to a different assignment that had a lower pay. I'm going to say that again. 4 people volunteered to take a position, right, and accept a lower pay. They had that right. It was a voluntary move. They knew it, and they did it anyway. Okay? The reassignments of other personnel, right, I used my authority under policy DK. Under DK, it says that I could reassign folks, right, as I see it to the benefit of the district. Okay? Now, those reassignments, here comes the question. In our compensation plan that we discussed last month, right? We stated that their assignments, they are guaranteed their current salary for 1 year. 1 year. Now, the following year, and it's actually on here, the 23-24 salary, right, pending no pay raise, right? I'm not saying that we're not, I'm just, right now, we don't know what that's going to be yet. If we receive no salary increase, right, they would have their reduction for their new position based on their new title, right? And we would save $80,000, $80,862. Now, in looking at this number and preparing for all of this, right, I begin to wonder now, is that even worth fighting for? Is it worth even changing their salary for the 23-24 school year, right? Now, $80,000 is 0.0004% of our $200 million budget. Okay, next slide, please. So here's what we've done. The district leadership team, just in a matter of 4 months. Oh,
Well, I guess I can save it for later. If you go back to that slide, I had a question, but I started writing down some notes.
okay.
The salary savings you said is the savings that you're gonna see that salary savings is the individuals that are being sent to the campuses, going into the 23-24 school year in their new position. Let's say they go from whatever they were at here, central office to office clerk. All those changes, they're only gonna see,
We're only gonna,
amongst all of them, is an
Yes.
$80,000 change.
amongst all of them.
Because that's like I said, where people were confused. That was part of the reason that we called this meeting,
Right.
was to be transparent and let people know.
Mhm.
It's also the board's responsibility to know what's going on within the district.
Absolutely.
That affects taxpayer dollars and student academics.
Mhm.
So this is just for transparency, so that everybody starts the school year the way they're supposed to, at 100%. I mean, we have a lot to do once the doors open, and we don't want people with questions or concerns, and that's why this was called. So that's an important slide to me. That's why I wanted to write that down. But there's a lot of questions about this as far as how that happened. The reassignments, the people that were chosen, like you said, I mean, you specified and you kind of went a little bit into detail that seniority was not something that was going to be a factor. I mean, I've heard and seen other districts that usually do, the last one in, the first one out. Because usually your seniority, you've invested so much already into them that they're usually your in most cases, highly effective individuals. They already understand the department, they understand the functions. And so that was one of the questions there, is how were these individuals selected? And that was a concern from the community and our staff. And like I said, I know that we're here to be about students, and we are about students. Everything that we've done is about students. We've been about students way before you got here. And that's what we focused on, and that's what we fought for, and that's what we keep looking at discrepancies. And so in this case, our staff, they're the ones that service our students. So if they're not 100% and they got concerns, they're not gonna be productive. And then that's the whole reason to have this whole meeting, is so that they're fully aware of all our changes, the taxpayers are aware of the changes. No one feels out there, because like I said, our community has come back has just recently, we're talking about, I've been only here 20 months maybe, I think, not even to the full 2 years. So it hasn't been that long that we got out of Weaver and that we got out of the mess that we were in before, where things weren't functioning properly. Thank God our campuses are highly efficient, so
Absolutely.
we can only imagine how efficient they're gonna be now. But that's why this is important. And so, thank you for providing that information and providing that number there. And then, because there was a lot of people that are being reassigned, and then they really felt that they were going to, well, they just wanted the truth, because like you
Right.
said, at one point, like I said, they were told that they weren't gonna lose any type of reduction in pay. But later on, are we gonna get to decide how that 80,000 came to be? Can we get into that? deeper
Actually,
later?
you have it.
Oh, just here?
It's here,
This list?
this list.
Okay.
If you look at
Okay, I see it here.
you see the 80,000 on the, I'm sorry it's so little, but you see the 80,000 on the bottom.
Yeah, the print is very small.
Yeah, and I apologize. I tried to make it bigger and without having big old spreadsheets and charts, but I know that there's a lot of information, but as you see on the chart here, you see the employee's name, their position, and department, and then the position they went to, and then the new department, right, or campus, right? And then the effective date, you see their 2022, it should be their 21-22 salary, their 22-23 salary, and then their estimated 23-24 salary, and then their years of experience. So there's a lot of information on this. And then you see at the very bottom on page 2, right, you see what's highlighted in yellow is the $80,862.
So, a campus clerk, I see, I'm not gonna say a name. I know also I can't use names, but I can just hint at positions. You have an individual that's going for $45,000, okay? And is now moving to a campus clerk and is going to be making almost $40,000. Okay, and that's in accordance with the compensation plan.
That's correct.
Okay. And see, part of the concern too, sir, is that also, and I understand them, and like I said, people understood that the decisions that had to be made, this is not, you inherited this just like we did, these issues. So, but it's like I told them, I understand that $5,000 is a lot of money to people. I understand that. And so that's the pain that's there with the decision that's being made. Okay? And so, but like I said, this is information that needs to be shared because there's a lot of people that are in limbo that are questioning things. So I don't know if HR's already met with them and talked with them and informed them of these changes and these dollar amounts.
So they all received letters, and here's the other thing, sir. It was this salary or no job.
No, I understand.
We had to make, as a district, again, I was here 1 month before the TASB study came out. Right, so I didn't initiate the TASB study. That was, I didn't initiate the Weaver report. It's stuff that the board had given me, that the district had and Dr. Valdez had got into motion. And so, okay, now I have the information. How do I move forward, right? And I've said this before, that popular decisions, right, are chances are it's probably not the right decision. When you all hired me, one of the questions basically was, can you make the hard decision? And I think I've made, every day I make hard decisions, right? Because I have to understand that, how does this decision impact kids in the end? Right? I was at 4 campuses yesterday and 3 customer service trainings, and I said, at central office, not one child comes to an education here at central office. Every kid goes to a campus. Yet, as a central office team, we're held accountable for student outcomes. You hold me accountable for student outcomes, and I don't teach one kid. So our team together, right, has to be able to improve student outcomes through the adults that we have at our campuses. And so I take that very seriously, and so why not give campuses control? Why not give campuses people? Why not give our campuses everything that they need? Why can't we provide children with school supplies? Why can't we provide children with a free and appropriate public education? Why do we have to charge parents for stuff that should be free? And I get it. I sometimes look at Facebook purely for entertainment purposes, because some of the stuff on there, of course, it's just, I can't believe it, right? It's like we're trying to do good things and people say, well, nothing is free, and we're already paying for it. Well, we didn't even have to do it, right? We didn't even have to say, don't bring school supplies. Then they would have complained, oh, look at the school supply list, right? We live in a very, I don't understand the cruelness, the vileness, the lack of civility in our current society. I don't understand how people can just express themselves so blatantly against people trying to do good work. I don't understand it. And I'll be the first person to say that if I don't know something, I'll say I don't know. But I don't understand the lack of civility that we have in our community. And it's not just Weslaco, it's across this country, where we've made it okay to just hate somebody without even knowing the whole story. I mean, I'm not even running for office and I'm talking like this, you know? And I don't understand it, right? I understand that I was given a task. I was given a task to improve the district based on the information that I had. The task and the information that I had was what I listed. I listed all of the policies, my authority, my supervisors being all of you, the Weaver report, my contractual duties, and also the TASB studies that were done well before I got here. Tough decisions still have to be made. And you're going to hold me accountable for the end result. You know, right now we're approaching 17,000 kids. When was the last time Weslaco ISD had that many kids? You know, I have to credit those folks. I have to credit our principals. It's not just me, but I also have to thank you all for allowing me to make the hard decisions and support me. And if I'm out of line, please tell me that I'm out of line. I've had to make some tough decisions. As a team, we've had to make some tough decisions. I constantly am paying for the sins of the 6 previous superintendents that came before me 10 years ago. Every day. Of course, I get compared to Dr. Rivera a lot, almost on a daily basis, so I'm going to assume, because it's so often, that it's a compliment. Okay? But everything else that I'm doing and that we're doing as a team is to create a positive learning environment for kids. Again, I mentioned earlier, we're dealing with the pandemic. We're dealing with safety. We're dealing with security. We're dealing with broken doors. We're dealing with aging facilities. It's been 2008 since Weslaco ISD has passed a bond. And some of the complaints we get are about tennis shoes and DoorDash. I don't understand it. We're doing what we can with what we know, given the information that we have, and we're following policy. So again, I really believe that we're doing the hard work. And right now, our principals are complaining. And you know what their number one complaint is? Man, I need more space. I need more teachers. I need more staff. When's the last time we had that problem? Rather than cutting the 27 teachers, what did we do? We added 17 instructional coaches to the one already that they had. Every campus now, regardless of size, has 2 instructional coaches when they only had 1 before. We made our campus improvement, our campus instructional facilitators, right? We made them what they are, assistant principals, to further their career because they're doing the job. You know, I just wish that when people complain, they think about all the great things that we're doing rather than just getting their feelings hurt, but yet still having a paycheck. Because that's what this was about. This was about making sure that no one loses their job in Weslaco ISD because we take care of our own. We call ourselves a family, and we're going to take care of the family. No one lost their job. Everyone got a pay raise. I don't understand it, sir, but I'm being very transparent here with everything that we've done.
No, you are. And and like I said, that's the reason that this workshop was called, because staff needs to arrive on day one, 100%. And like you said, there's a lot of things that are said on social media. There's a lot of discussions that take place. It's interesting because all this information is online, on YouTube. All the videos are recorded. The minutes are even easier to read. And but like I said, as we go through the process, this is just to inform and be transparent. Get everybody focused on what matters most is, you know, educating our kids and taking care of our.
I can't wait till we have kids in our buildings. Next slide, please. This is a wrap-up. In the district leadership team, we saved $223,000. we've absorbed $3 million worth of positions, and our transfers $80,000, for a total of $3.3 million. And again, if the board decides next year to waive these particular employees, we eat the $80,000, no harm, no foul. They keep their position, they keep their current position, and they keep their pay. And again, if we do a 3% or 5%, right now the employees, so I issued a challenge, and I stated this, and I hope, board members, I hope I'm still here after November. So here's what I said. If we increase enrollment by 1,000 kids, then I will offer a 5% across the board pay raise, plus pay for the employee health benefit, which is about $500. 5%. And now they're scaring me because I think we're going to hit that 1,000. Okay? So.
And that's for this school year. This school year. So instead of 3%, it would be 5%.
It would be 5, plus we pay for their employee contribution for their medical insurance.
That initiative was last spring.
Yes.
He sent that out.
Yep. And they're scaring me because, man, they're going to do it. Okay? But it's a good problem to have. So in all, again, $3.3 million, or you can subtract the $80,000. We keep our employees, and then however their pay raises go through, then and so forth, we can go ahead and pursue that. Next. So the other thing that was brought up at the request of some of you are the school safety. So here's what we're doing. TEA put out some information that we're required to do. It's called the door checks, right? And they've sent us a gamut of things that we're going to have to do. There was an article in the paper or in the news today about what Weslaco ISD doing. You know, we're starting to see some good things here in the media about Weslaco ISD. We started a school safety task force. 26 members, and we take care of everything by committee. So everything from SEL, COVID, pandemic, and so just a myriad of things within that task force. We're also learning about the standard response protocols. 12 members attended the Region 1 School Safety Conference, August 1st and 2nd. We're also updating our emergency operations plan. Next. We have crisis reality training. This crisis reality training is a realistic approach to active shooter training, and so we have that scheduled for September 5th and October 31st. So we have 2 sessions. We actually have a morning and an afternoon session on both days. You'll see when we have our school board meeting on April 16th, we have our MOU that will be subject to your approval. It's a memorandum of our MOU with the City of Weslaco and Weslaco PD, which is 8 police officers, 2 at each high school, 1 each at each middle school, plus a sergeant. We're still working on the elementary piece. We received Weslaco PD actually received a COPS grant for emergency radios. The only thing we need to purchase is the server for those radios to work. We also applied for another COPS grant to build the vestibules, which are to contain front entrances at all of our buildings. Only a few schools have it, so we're working on that. Next. Daily exterior door sweeps. Again, we checked 476 exterior doors, and it was pretty scary. Because at first there were 177 doors that we had to work on, and so now we're down to 54 doors that we're currently being serviced at this point. We've also purchased 1,227 door night locks. So these locks are, some of our doors, I was at Mary Hogue yesterday, and some of their doors can only lock from the outside. Correct me if I'm wrong, America, right? They only can lock from the outside. So these safety locks allow you teachers in an emergency to lock the door from the inside. School threat assessment team training, we're going through as we do our in-service. Again, teachers came back yesterday. Bus driver training. We have security camera training coming up this Friday, I believe. And then of course, we all have the Raptor security system at all of our schools. And again, these are some of the things that are going wrong. I read this wrong, I'm sorry. There's ZPass. It's actually a mobile app to be able to track kids. Kids actually scan in. This leaves no child left behind on a bus. There was a school district here in Texas, got 6 kids, I think it was 6 kids got off at the wrong stop. So this ZPass allows us to prevent that from happening. You can see the lockdown too, the door lock that you see that you can just push down, and that's a safety. In the emergency take action, again, that's the standard response protocol. I want to give credit to Abel and Mr. Danny Reyna, and both school assistant superintendents and Americo, to all of the safety and security that we're getting. It's not advertised a lot because maybe we don't want to advertise all of that. But we have done so much to improve the safety and security of our schools. Our kids are our most precious things that we are entrusted by parents. And parents drop their kids off at school wanting them to be safe first, and then in hopes to get an education. So the idea is to create that safe learning environment that we're always promoting. And so I want to thank them publicly for all of the hard work that they do in getting our buildings ready to go. Again, I was at 4 campuses yesterday. They look phenomenal. It is super clean, curb appeal. I go back to, we have a better idea. Come to Weslaco ISD. So, next slide. Again, you have all of the list for reassignments, transfers, pay. Subject to your questions, board members, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you may have for clarification for yourself or for the good of the public and whoever's watching.
I'm gonna go ahead and just start with the school safety.
Okay.
I know yesterday, I had the privilege of meeting with Mrs. Garza. She's from La Feria School Board member, trustee. She's a long time. She's been a board member for over 20 years with a length of experience. And, she mentioned that they've gone to a training and, having a police officer at every campus, you can have all the X's and O's everywhere in place, but ultimately, there still needs to be a plan. If not, you're gonna have officers falling over each other. You're gonna have kids not knowing where to go. You need to have an exit plan. So she brought up some points there that made a lot of sense that need further attention to just having a plan. I think having kids hide under desks, I'm sure we've come a long way from that. And, she also mentioned the TASB, or not the TASB breakdown. She mentioned something, there's a report that was done on
Uvalde.
House committee report.
Right.
That's available now. But she did bring up a lot of valid points that it's not just having the door locks. It's not just there's a lot more organization that needs to be involved with in a crisis situation like this.
So I can say this. I'm licensed a school safety certification instructor. So what that means is that that I am, I guess, I could legally certify teachers to carry guns in school. Now, I'm not saying and I'm not suggesting that we do that. It's just I'm certified and licensed to do that. And so here's the problem, or here's the challenge that we have with school safety. 611 school shootings this year. Just this year. We're only in August, right? Not one parent has been the shooter. Right? The shooters have all been students of those schools. Now, the Uvalde shooter was an anomaly because he actually went into the classroom. Most shooters have gone down the hallway, large open areas, but this student, who was a former student, knew the building, was familiar with the staff, actually went into the building and into a classroom, right? And so in my training, what we've learned is that the shooters are actually getting smarter, right? In other words, they're learning from the Sandy Hook, they're learning from Columbine, they're learning from Parkland, they're learning from Santa Fe and in Houston. So they're doing their homework. So most of these shootings are planned a year and a half in advance, and that's why what a lot of people are enacting is red flag law, right? So you know, Donna had a situation where there were 4 shooters where they were going to use a situation to create carnage on one side, everybody runs out, and there's another shooter. So what we're doing is we're advertising our plans to our students who become the shooters, right? So they know, well, this is what I do because I know this is their actions. These are their next steps. So how do we, sir, you're absolutely correct, right? The shooters are becoming more and more sophisticated, right? So as we plan, it's a very fluid environment in how to react, how to respond. The standard response protocol is the run, hide, fight system that we're all kind of going through right now, right? It's okay, so where do we run to? Where do we hide? And then at what point do we fight? So those are all scenarios that we're really trying to train for. You know, it's unfortunate. You know, here in pandemic, everybody was at home. You didn't see anything about school shooting. And now we want kids back in school, and look what we're faced with. So we're trying to be very proactive, right? And so one of the hardest things that you know we talk about is that an increase in safety and security creates an inconvenience for parents and visitors. And so how do we balance the inconvenience with access? How do we balance, well, I want to enroll my kids in school, but man, I can't even get into the building, right? So we are wrestling with a myriad of challenges trying to keep our schools safe. You know, and so I think, sir, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that we have, but I will say at this time that some of our plans, we'd like to kind of keep kind of close hold, right? And that not tell the public, right? Because who are we telling? We're telling the potential threats, right? So we want to make sure, and again, I would say this, and I'd like to reassure those listening and parents that we do have a plan. We do have it is at the forefront of everything that we're doing. But I don't want to kind of show our hand of what we're going to do, because then all we're going to do is help someone prepare. So I guess trust is a word that I don't use freely, but I would ask that parents trust us. We have kept safe schools so far, and we'd like to keep it that way. We are doing, and thank goodness for a great team, we're doing some great things keeping our buildings safe. Again, to check every single door, to do daily door checks. I would tell you that Mr. Buttimer and Ms. Solana have reached out with principals, have done daily door checks. We've, you know, I'm not daring TEA to come and audit us, but I tell you what, I look forward to an opportunity to be tested. So I think we're doing a really good job with safety and security, and I'd like to reassure parents that we're doing everything we can to keep their kids safe. And not only that, to keep our staff safe.
Okay.
Been wiggling in my chair over here. I'm just holding on. Thank you, first of all, to your cabinet or your leadership team for giving us all these policies in the folder, because I know that there's highlights of certain areas in the policies, and if it's one board member that's all about policy, it's me. I have to research and analyze this for classes, so I'm really look at this. If somebody asks me a question, as a board member, I always go back to policy and say, let me look. I'm not sure what the answer is. And so when we were talking about, you know, directors and assistant superintendents, for me, you know, that's up to you. You want to title them what you want. You want to change the numbers. I have no problem. My question was about reassignments. When I look at policy DK local, I understand that the superintendent has the authority to reassign people, but in this policy, it also says reassignment is defined as a transfer to another position, department, or facility that does not necessitate a change in the employment contract of the contract employee. And when I look at this paper with all the lateral transfers, I'm looking at, first of all, I'm looking at a different department. I'm looking at different salaries, which is, you're right, everybody got promoted. I don't see anybody that should be complaining because everybody, got an increase. But these are not defined as reassignments in the policy DK local.
So I can explain that. So the only contracted people that we have in the district are teachers, librarians, counselors, and your chapter 21. So your at-will employees, your hourlies, they are not under contract.
Okay.
So policy DK says that I could, basically gives me the authority to reassign, right? And then if they're under contract, right? So in other words, they're gonna go from, I'm gonna give you a perfect example, okay? So Campus A has 1,000 kids. Campus B has 500 kids. So on the first day of school, right, Campus A now has 1,100 kids, needs 4 teachers. Campus B has 400 teachers or 400 students, which means they have 4 extra teachers, right? So according to DK, I can move those 4 teachers to Campus A to level those positions. Those are contracted employees, okay? So that's what that refers to. If they don't have a contract, they can be reassigned because, or here's the other thing, right? If they're an at-will employee, we can do a RIF.
Okay, and that's my other question. But
Okay.
first of all, let me go back to contracts, because
Okay.
the names here on this list are contract.
Okay, so give me an example of.
Well, I don't
Not,
want to call them.
I mean, you don't have to give me the name. You can just.
You can, want an example?
Like from personnel department to
Human resources.
a campus. Personnel department to human resource. Personnel department to school leadership.
Okay, so a personnel department, from personnel department to, I guess I need to know which one you're.
Well, this individual, sir, look, they already were working in the personnel department. And then they got moved to the human resource department, but they already were in the same department, and they saw a increase of $41,573 in salary. And that person and for that position, there wasn't a job posting for 10 days, there wasn't a committee created, and there wasn't somebody hired.
It's a
So-
non-contracted position.
No, it is a contract. It is, all these here are contracts.
So my question is this.
What contract? A chapter 21 contract?
Well, it doesn't, there's still, it doesn't specify in the policy, non-chapter 21 or chapter 21, it just says contract employee.
But though, we don't have contracts for those personnel.
Yes, remember we talked about all the non-chapter 21 contract people that we do have on staff?
So,
There's non-chapter 21s and 21s, right?
There's 2 types of contracts.
right, so,
And all
so
of them are.
in
and all of-
policy, right, the contract, so you can have a non-chapter 21 contract,
Mhm.
right? But we don't have those listed, or at least
But sir,
Yes,
so
you're
what is the, like in that case right there, in that situation, this person right here, who makes the decision there? Because, look, this is what I'm coming from. I'm coming from opportunity, right?
Mhm.
Everyone deserves an opportunity in this district, and everybody deserves to apply for a position and see if they're qualified and get it. Okay, that's how we had, our new HR director, that's how they got it. They got an opportunity because it opened up and they applied. We decided to do 2, then we had Mr. Buttermer join the team. There was a lot of opportunity throughout the district before you got here for a lot of individuals, okay? And I will fair to say, and this is no offense, but they're highly qualified, highly experienced, and very talented. But the
Very.
reality is, if you were to go back 24 months, that opportunity might not have been there in that window there because it wasn't there for many years. So we just got out of that. That's fair to say because we have an audit that shows it. that in certain critical positions, it was locked down and in a chokehold. And when I start seeing that we're slowly starting to slide back because people aren't getting an opportunity because some positions are being appointed and filled, that raises a red flag for me as well too as a board member, because, hold on, let me finish, because that's what I just came out of. An opportunity is something that everybody should have and should agree. There's no way that someone can say, because you said it yourself, as we go back through board meetings, I've only been here 30 days, I've only been here 60 days, I've only been here 90 days. The same can be said for some of the executive level cabinet, that the only probably person with seniority there was Mr. Aguilar. Everybody else had barely arrived to central office. There's no way that you know, or anyone else knows, the productivity, the experience, and the qualifications of individuals that are being freely moved. It was very fast, and I do disagree with the speed and the timing and the way it was done. But that's a primary. I'm looking at this right now, and I'll tell you this, and I hope there's another audit. I said it myself. I think that the community should invest, compared to what we spent in the past, the money that we've wasted. Not we, but others have wasted. It is worth the investment to make sure that we're always operating effectively. And I look at these salaries and some of these people here, and the fact that they didn't even apply for the position and they were selected and appointed, or the titles just changed because they were in the same department. Personnel and human resources is not a change. And you're seeing a salary increase of $41,573 without even the position being posted, without even an interview, a committee. Where's the weight? Where's the selection? How can 5 years down the line can I sit back if I'm on the board or not, and defend myself as a board member or the administration if you're here or not, and say this was done correctly? That's what I need. That's the answer that I need to hear today. Is how can you defend it when you have, and that's just the first sample, and I can keep on going. You got individuals 26,000, 30,000, 30,000, 20,000, 18,000. I can just keep going down the list of individuals whose really titles just changed. It went from a director to executive director, and that's the same thing that we read in the audit. So who was making the decisions? Who decided? I understand you keep throwing out policy, but I want to go a little bit deeper. Okay. I want to know who I put these individuals in charge. This is how the decision was made. What rubric? What weight? What did they do? Did they look at resumes, or was it just? Where's the answers?
Okay, I did it.
You did it yourself.
So I'm going to own the reassignments. I'm going to own the hiring. I'm going to own the appointments. And so
you chose every single person yourself, and you made the decision.
No,
you approved it.
I approved it.
But who decided to do it? That's what structure did you have in place that decision was made? Like, as far as the department heads, like, what did they use?
So I allowed, and again, this is why I own it. I allowed the departments to pick their folk. I did. You know, I had this conversation with a board member this morning. Said every business is successful because they get to pick their own people. You know,
and that's probably what the people in the audit and the old audit said too.
And that what I like to, go ahead.
I was going to try to answer the question here. So, I think where we're at today, with as few people as that we employ, especially in this particular office, with the 27 folks, I would tell you that every one of these folks that work in this building works, and I'm not saying that not everybody works hard, but we have a heavy lift here. You know, I would tell you that most of us were here Saturday morning preparing for this, sitting down, trying to get the data together that with all the questions that came up on Friday afternoon. You know, we had most of the data putting this together. Now, I firmly believe that our principals, our department heads, our executive directors and assistant superintendents have every right to choose the people that they want to work with. Now, if they wanted to post, they can post. Okay? Now, I'll give you a perfect example. Okay? Sorry, Ms. Solano, right? But I'm going to use you as an example, right? She had a vacant position. It was an administrative assistant position for the assistant superintendent for school leadership, right? Said, okay, these are the folks that have been reassigned. If you want to interview these folks, you can interview folks or you can post. She said, no, I want to post. So we let her post. She posted. It was, I believe, internal only. Is that correct? Yeah. Because most of the positions were internal post only, right? Because we knew that we had 30, we knew we were 30 non-campus staff over, right?
I understand.
So
she posted and you interviewed
so
intra-district.
she posted and she interviewed intra-district.
Okay,
right?
but
that was her choice. Others knew what was out there. They knew what was out there and they chose.
I'm sorry, sir. That's not gonna,
Okay.
that is not the answer as far as they knew what was out there to say. You can blindly, like I said, you have an individual here, let me just tell you real quick, went from a secretary. All they did, and they're working in a different department, yes, they are, administrative assistant. They went from a secretary to administrative assistant, and they saw a $24,883 increase in salary without having to interview because they were chosen at will by the individual in charge of the department. I said, other people, like I said, 30, 40,000, 18,000. Like I said, if you 5 years from now, people are going to look back and want answers as far as how this happened. And the answer is going to be that we allowed them to choose. I haven't been to HR, human resources conferences or trainings. I cannot say that I know. But that, to me, where is that in policy? Where is that in trainings that you're going to hear? Allow your staff to choose at will because they feel like it, or just choose whoever they feel like. And what did they bring to the table? Did they just bring a paper and a name, or did they bring to you a packet and resume and a rubric that said, hey, out of the 5 people I have in my department, I ranked them all myself based on past evaluations, past experience, past years of service, and these are the individuals. This is my top pick out of the group. Justification on why they chose who they chose, because like I said, you were casting out all these individuals out of central office because they're being told that they're being more effective at the campus. They had in some cases, there was openings within the same department, okay? And they had to sit there. Could you just imagine them sitting there knowing that they've been told already, not where they're going, but just that they've been chosen to leave, their contract isn't over, and then they have to see a position open that was staying, and that individual is retiring or leaving the district, and they're not even considered or chosen for that position at all, and then somebody else that they see that is younger and less qualified is pulled out of a different department and plugged in because you allowed that department head to just choose at will. And then not only that, sir, they had to finish off the year in limbo, waiting. First of all, I have dealt with staff, and sometimes I've had to make hard decisions as well too. You know how they say bad news is always delivered on a Friday, and it's also delivered near the end of the contract. Why would anyone tell people that they've been chosen to leave when they still have all this time still to finish off their contract, and they have to walk in every single day looking at people having parties or laughing, enjoying themselves, and then they still have weeks, in some cases months. These people are human beings. They have families here. They have kids here, grandkids here. This was done completely wrong. And I don't think that you can justify it and show me an HR conference or any documentation that says that that's the way you handle business. That's not the way you do business. At least, maybe I was taught wrong, but you take people's into consideration. And these people were notified well before their term was over, their contract.
I'll admit, sir, that there could have been a better way.
And no one said nothing. Everyone just let it, we were all talking behind the scenes, but it just never got to this. And we had to call a special workshop because it just got way too far and way too out of hand. And I want to tell you something, I'll tell you now. I was going to put it on the agenda to change policy, and that every single hire and it's not micromanagement, because that's the word that some other people like to use that are on the board. They know the definition of micromanagement because it's defined in Weaver. I'm just asking that we follow policy. Post it, interview. Yes, maybe it might not seem important to you or to others, but hey, interview, give them a shot, post it for 10 days, and then do interviews, and then you bring it to the board and we're going to sign it off. Following the process. It's a shock to me, sir, that the process that we are not giving our staff is the same process that put you in that seat. Because if we had done and had your ideology, and we had just gone with the first round, you wouldn't be sitting there. But we decided to pick individuals, bring them in, interview them, and then you came out on top with 7-7 support. Imagine if we would have just said, you know what, we don't need round two. We already have somebody that's 7-7, let's just move forward and that's it. We don't need to do interviews. We didn't do dinners, we didn't do all that other stuff that was a waste of time. We did straight interviews, we saw what was on there in the resumes, and we went to the second round and we brought you in. That's what these people deserve because they haven't had it. I know you just got here. I know you understand the backstory. There's a lot to it too, okay? But they just got out of a situation where everybody knew that if they hadn't talked to a board member prior to going to interview, they were just going for practice, okay? You walk into an interview committee and you see 2 to 3 people there, you don't even have a shot. Now it's 8 or more, now the process is right. I'm not criticizing the process for the hiring, I'm criticizing this process where you shouldn't have, I think it was a mistake to just tell staff and say, hire at will, and then now I, as a board member to the community, have to defend $41,573 for one individual, which is a title change. Still doing the same amount of work, still in the same department. 24,000, 30,000, I'm not gonna go through this anymore. It's sickening because the people that are probably watching are some of the people that they're waiting for their final outcome. What's gonna happen with me? Am I gonna go to the campus and be reassigned? Am I gonna get a drop in pay? And then on top of that, they got played with. On top of that, not only were they told early that they were leaving and left in limbo for months until they got their reassignment letter, but then in summer, they were told by HR that they were not going to see any drop in pay, that they were going to keep their exact pay until they retire or resign, and that was verbally, and they gave it to me, and they got it in writing through email. And that's when I contacted you and I asked you, we need to have this meeting so that you can clarify whether you gave that authorization, because to be playing with people's emotions and be playing with people's families and things like that, I'm never going to support that, and I'm always going to speak up about it. So did you authorize that directive to go out, that they were going to keep their pay until they resign or retire?
So we looked at the finances. So originally, it was what was in the compensation plan, okay? And then when we started to do the math, it was $80,000. It was $80,000, and just let them keep just eat the $80,000. And that's my recommendation. Okay. Just now allow them to keep the $80,000. Well, allow us to spend the $80,000 to keep their salaries stagnant.
And I'm not trying to dissuade you in any way, but I want to confirm. I'm telling you, I had to deal with this all summer long. Okay, I don't know about I know other board members did too. I don't know about everybody else, because they're not here, so I can't ask them. But I wanted to clarify this because there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of tears, there's a lot. People's paychecks are everything, and especially, if they have family counting on that, they're supporting and helping their kids in college and things like that. To be yo-yoing them back and forth, that doesn't work for me. And we should have just been straight up with a plan. If not, we shouldn't have opened our mouths at all. We should have just been, until we were ready with it, we should have brought them in and said, this is the plan of action that we're going to take. And then we can't go back and forth. And my thing is, one last question, because I want to confirm it on the record. So you're telling me that somebody's making $58,000 is going to go to the campus and be an office clerk, and they're going to fall within the compensation plan, and they're not going to see a reduction after going into the 23-24 school year? Because some of these individuals are up there.
So, I'm going to try to follow you here.
Yeah, because your $80,000 to me doesn't add up, because some of them were under the impression that they were going to draw down to the new scale. And the new scale for that position is nowhere near what they're making now. So that was their worry. They said, the scale I'm at now and the amount that I'm getting, per hour compared to that new scale, it's a $19,000 drop. You're saying they're only losing 80. There's some individuals out there that see, there's all different numbers.
I think.
I just want to confirm for them.
So I think what you're hearing is not the whole story.
That's what I'm asking. Right.
All right. So when we reassigned folks, right, the first thing we said, no one is losing their job. I made that very clear in April. I made it very clear in April because we renewed folks that probably should have been non-renewed. We said it in May. I said it in May. No one's going to lose their job. I said it again in June. No one's going to lose their job, right? TASB came out, you're overstaffed 168 people, right? Very clear that we are overstaffed at central office, right? What was everybody doing, right? I created the department or the district leadership team, the 6 folks that answered to me, and I brought them in and I said, here, right? What are we going to do with all the folks? I only want one administrative assistant. I gave the guidelines, right? And here's what we're gonna do. The guidance is no one can lose their job, right? Again, the TASB study made it very clear that we were overstaffed. We didn't have the enrollment to support what we had, right? So could we feasibly, and I did ask the question, could we feasibly keep their jobs or their salaries the same even though they were reassigned? So we started going through the compensation plan, right? But at the same time, I don't know how, I don't know where people got their information from. I really don't. Because they were told all along they still had a job, right? So, and I think that would have been a little bit more alarming to say, okay, we're cutting your position and you don't have a job and we don't know where you're gonna go.
I know some
But that was never articulated. What was articulated was, look, you're not gonna lose your job. We're gonna look at your salary. We're gonna put you in. I even met with all of the folks last week. And they said, well, why did they wanna know our educational background? We wanted to know what you're qualified in. So we had to make sure our campuses needed help. So why are we going to allow our campuses to hire folks when we already had the folks in the district, right? So the question becomes is, let's reassign people to like positions as close as we can get, right? We never looked at an employee, right, to say, okay, well, you're an office clerk and you make X dollars, well, we're gonna make you, and I don't know the salary, we're gonna make you a yard lawn maintenance person. That was never in the conversation, right? I think what happens is that when information gets put out and we have these conversations, right, I will tell you this, right? We had leaks up here at central office. We couldn't even have a conversation up here, and then we'd walk down the hall and somebody, oh, did you hear what they said?
Welcome to with WSD. I told
Yeah,
you that
I mean,
nothing stays private here.
there's no confidentiality, no privacy. So it's like, well, let's go into a car and let's go somewhere so that we can have a conversation, right? So all of this stuff got convoluted. So what the people put in pieces of information, right? And then they post on Facebook, right? And it starts rumors and wildfires, and it's like, well, where did that come from? You know, I just want to say that you know, if there was a do-over, right, I'd do it over again. I'd be more hands-on. But I don't know a superintendent in this country that deals with an office clerk, other than the 3 that are in the superintendent's office. Okay? So I had to trust the system. I had to move forward. Right? I had to make sure that we were fiscally responsible, right? And I needed to make sure that people didn't lose their job. Now, the new hires, or, well, the people that were in here, that got promoted, they got moved, you know what? I'll own that, right? We created a salary compensation plan, right? And put people in based on a new organizational structure. That's what we did, right? And when we asked TASB, these are the positions we want. What should the salary be? They made those salaries according to like districts, right? So, okay, if you have this position, then this is the salary range. This is your min, mid, and max. And that's what we adopted. So, and what you're talking about, when you look at this salary schedule, I sorted it down high to low. There are about 5 individuals on here that got a significant pay raise.
Yeah.
5, okay? And so if you look at those 5, are there questions to be raised? Absolutely. Yeah. There are, and there's no doubt about it. And those 5 individuals, and I'm going to say this, for 5 individuals, okay, admittedly, maybe the process was wrong. Maybe the process was incorrect. For 5 individuals, maybe, or 8 individuals, maybe it was wrong, okay, or call it wrong. Are we going to negate everything else that we did and everything else that we did right?
And it's more than 5, but yes. No, I understand what you're saying. We've done a lot of good. But you got to understand that we have different factors and levels that we all, as a board, right? Because you put the chart yourself. And I've always said that before. I've even said when I first came on, we're always missing someone at the top, which is the community. Because the community is the one that loaned us these seats. And they're the ones that are going to decide whether we stay here. But part of the job is also to make sure that we look at our community beliefs and standards and whatnot, and we cannot make, this was a loophole. There's no way that you can justify and tell me that a person that was an office clerk, and mind you, these positions weren't offered to anyone, opportunity. I'm not talking about the whole process, I'm talking about the whole district and your whole time here. I'm talking about opportunity. Whether it was 5 or it was 10 spots, those people, none of those individuals that are getting casted out of central office had a chance to apply for that position. But office clerk to administrative assistant, 15,000, just like that. And you allowed it to be, is pick whoever you feel like picking. That's essentially what you're telling me. I delegated the authority to these individuals to pick whoever they wanted to pick. Now, you don't want to name them, and that's fine. You want to take full responsibility, that's fine. But I don't think anyone in our community is going to agree whether it's 5, and it's more than 5. I mean, people should have had a chance. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's the only part that I'm really upset about. And I know that you're pulled in every single which way, but everybody knows better. And people should have had a chance. And if HR can tell me that that's common practice in districts across the country where the superintendent tells their staff, choose at will, you know, at least in the report, the previous report, they'd fake an interview. Okay? So, and that's the case. And that's why I'm upset, because I don't want to go back, because some board members here have invested a lot of time to try to correct 8 to 10 years of mess. I said, and to go back just like that between May and July, that does really bother me.
And sir, I don't think that we've gone back to the extent.
In certain areas.
And I don't think we've gone back to the extent that was depicted in the Weaver report. Again, I have to accept responsibility for the current outcome, and which is why I thank the board for the opportunity to disclose and be public with what we're doing at this present workshop. And again, I've already said, you know, if given an opportunity to do a do-over or whatever, you know, would we do things differently? Yes, sir, I would. I would be more hands-on. You know, I spent my first 2.5 months just trying to fix the budget, right? I didn't have time to deal, and it's my fault, obviously. I didn't have time to deal where an office clerk was going to be assigned. I just didn't, right? I was more worried about $200 million, right, and 2,200 employees, and trying to get 16,000 kids in the building. That was my focus. And I focused on 6 folks that I could count on. So that's what I did, and the rest of it, I have to take responsibility for. I own that, and I cannot. I never play the blame game. I've always said, since I've been here and since I interviewed, that the buck stops with me. If there's a problem and it's somebody's fault, it's all my fault. Right? But if it's my fault, I get the opportunity to fix it. And so I don't believe in blame. When you blame, that means you lose control.
And if I can jump in on you, because that's where I started from the beginning, then we went off. Mark already kind of said everything I was going to say, but you're right, it's not about blame game or who was in charge or who did this, but to me as a board member, I'm looking at these policies, I'm saying, what can we do as a board to ensure that we give a reasonable opportunity to employees to apply for a position? What can we do? Because it is here in the policies that we're supposed to post, positions that require a certificate or a license. We know that we have to post for those positions. It's here in policy. We know that we have to, it says here also, establish guidelines for advertising employment. The superintendent or the designee has to have guidelines for advertising employment opportunities and posting vacancies. So we're not doing it correctly because people are complaining that they didn't have not complaining, I'm sorry, that's not the right word. They're concerned that they did not have the opportunity. What can we do as a board? What happened. From here on out in the future, we're going to deal with this every year. What are we going to do as a board to ensure that consistency is there, where we are giving everybody an equal opportunity to apply for these positions? So
what I said, my guidance here, we had transfers, and I sent this out to you last week. People are still, last week people were still requesting transfers. And so I said, you know what, let's put people where they want to be. And I said that to all of you in my soup notes, that let's put people where they want to be. And it was, as long as the principals agree, right? We allowed people where they want to be. It's easier to hold people accountable when you ask to be there and you want to be there, right? Because it goes back to, well, you asked to be here. So we allowed it. And then I said, okay, come August 5th, that's it. No mas, right? From this point forward, the dust has settled. From this point forward, every single position from now on has to be posted. So in other words, no more can a principal from Weslaco, let's say Weslaco High has a math vacancy, right? But she knows the math teacher at Weslaco East, right? Hey, put in a transfer. No. You know what? Post the position, right? And if they apply, they apply, right? So I ended that August 5th, and I, in hindsight, I'm admitting to some failures here. I'm admitting to some mistakes here. I'm going to own this, right? And so I have to be able to correct this. And so I ended this August 5th, and now from this point forward, every job has to be posted.
Every opening.
Every opening has to be posted.
And now that we get there, because this is a big concern too about, well, like you said, the principal, hired, the whole nepotism. I know nepotism applies to a public official or a superintendent who makes the decision to hire somebody. But we also have assignment of relatives in our policy.
Yes.
Where if you're supervising your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, they should not be in that position, right? And I know that we've made some hires and changes during summer that possibly this applies to, where there's supervisors who are supervising their family members, as according to DEC local. And I looked it up, and it's wife, husband, brother, sister, consanguinity. So what are we gonna do about that as a board? I'm not saying do this.
So
what are we gonna do?
I know which situation you're referring to, and
There's several, not just that.
Okay, so I only know of one. So what I've realized here is that, and I even reached out to legal. There's a lot of married couples in Weslaco ISD. A lot of married couples. There's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of
Supervising each other?
No, not. I'm just
that makes a
in
difference.
That's
general.
the difference, yeah.
Okay, in general, there's a lot of relatives. I mean, talk about a family-run business. Welcome to Weslaco ISD. There's nothing wrong with that. We're the largest employer in Weslaco, and naturally, families are going to work in the same district, right? The one you're referring to, the evaluator is because it's two teachers. Now, what you're referring to is the coaching assignment, and so that has not. They don't evaluate. And we talked about this with the AD this afternoon. Is there an evaluation from an athletic coordinator to a coach on that campus? That's a question that I don't know the answer. That's a question that I asked, but I don't know the answer. Right? So, do athletic coordinators? Do they evaluate other coaches? Now, here's the other thing. We know that athletic coordinators don't evaluate teachers. Right? So in other words, that comes from the principal or the assistant principal. So that T-test evaluation is from principal to teacher, not from athletic coordinator to coach.
But are they getting a stipend and getting paid to be an athletic coordinator? And is he or she getting paid to be a coach apart from teaching?
Yes.
So that makes you're still getting paid to do something extra. Someone's choosing you to coach a sport they think you're going to be good at and pushing somebody else away and making the decision that you're going to get the money for
But
this.
nobody in that situation, nobody got fired. In fact, they got an increase. They got an increase in pay.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that job offer did not come until 2 weeks after the reassignment. So how is that possible? How are we saying that it took place like that? It did not. So that's why I asked you to research that, investigate it to the fullest, because it did not occur the way it's being mentioned. That person was terminated, and 2 weeks later was offered a position at a higher position. That's not the right way to do things.
Well, I never heard that the coach was terminated. I never heard, that never came across my desk.
Those conversations we can have, it's more personnel, but what I'm just trying to get at is, what are we gonna do to ensure that this doesn't happen again? What policies can we set into place to have that consistency across the district where we don't have to be hearing this? Because I feel like it's putting me as a board member in a bad position, just like, they say stuff, well, the superintendent, this and that, and it bothers you. Same thing with me. I'm sure the rest of the board, when you hear people saying stuff, hey, that I had nothing to do with it, but you still get pulled into it, into these decisions. And I just want to ensure that we are more careful about these decisions that are being made. What can we do?
Well, I think from this point forward, we post every single position, and it's an open season. The question we have to ask ourselves, right, and this is the hard question, right, is, so districts have to post either internal only, right, or open it up on a wider net. So if we are over, let's say, for example, we're allocated 1,015 teachers, let's say, right? And we have a teacher, that's a bad example. All right, let's say we have an instructional coach position, right? Just like we did. We had 19 instructional coach position vacancies. We had 27, actually it was more than that, it was almost 40 overages in teachers between elementary, middle, and high, right? So we had 40. So there's no reason to do an external opening for that position, right? So when we posted the instructional coach position, it said internal applicants only, right? So that was taking care of our own, right? Now, if in fact that we have 1,015 teachers, we're maxed out, and now we have an instructional coach position, we may have to open it up to a wider net, because and again, we can entertain the idea that it's posted publicly to the open, right? So I really think that it really depends on the position that we're going to post, but either way, you're correct, we need to post those positions. I think, and without trying to disclose your email, all your email that you sent to me, right? But you said something to me about happy teachers.
Yes.
Okay? All right. So during the summer, right, my goal, I guess, being the new guy, try to create happiness. Give people what they want, take care of our own, right? Put people in a position, because for some, it's just having a job, some is a paycheck, some is whatever the case may be, right? So happy teacher, productive teacher. So let's move people around as to put them in a happy position, because maybe their happiness is contagious to kids, okay? And so that was kind of my intent, okay? Clearly, right, there were errors, mistakes, failures, to create an environment where people can be assigned where they want to be, and be happy. It didn't work the way I thought it would. And so now I'm trying to regroup with our team and trying to get school started, open our doors safe, and that's kind of the priorities right now.
And that brings me to my next topic, because the number 2 slide you put up there was kids. That's what we're all here for. And that's a lot of the messages and phone calls I get is the teachers right now. And that's my next topic, about why are we changing? And I know to us it's like, why are we worried about these little things like dress code and jeans? And now they told me that they're getting more minutes added to their day. Now they're getting like 25 more minutes or 30 minutes or something that they're going in. They have to, I guess because of the bus schedules. So they're just kind of like, what's going on? You know, like they want us to be worried about safety. Like, I'm okay, or fundraising with jeans, even if we pay dollars, like, it wasn't broken. Why fix something that's not broken? And that's creating a lot of ruffled feathers around here.
I can answer that. We talked about dress code at length. We talked about we talked about being professional, and my understanding, even in talking to Coach Cuellar many months ago, was he goes, hey, all teachers wore ties every day. Even the basketball coaches wore a suit. So there was, I guess, there was some discussion on trying to get back to some sense of professionalism in terms of the way we dress. Now, so we did put out, here's what we put out. Jeans were allowed once a week, and shoes had to be comfortable and practical for the job. Now, I will say this. As a principal, that's an administrative function, right? The dress code is very clear and you'll see it in the employee handbook. The dress code is very clear, right, on the attire for teachers. Now, if a principal says, I don't want you to wear tennis shoes, I support the principal. They have every right to say, I don't want you to wear tennis shoes. That's an administrative decision. Now, if they say, I want everybody to wear a clown suit, well, then, okay, hey, all right, principal, let's have a different conversation here, okay? But every principal has the right to increase a standard. They can't take away. So in other words, they can't say, okay, comfortable and practical, so you can wear chanclas. No, so that's, but Mrs. Dyke, those are administrative decisions that have nothing to do with governance or board policy. So, but the principals have the right to make those decisions.
Right, and as a board member, we look over the employee handbook. We don't have to approve it or say, put this in, put this out, but it does say here that blue jeans are not permitted to be worn unless otherwise authorized by the campus principal or department supervisor. That's fine. I spent, like I said, 10 years in a first and second grade classroom. They would let us wear jeans. We fundraisers to pay for whatever we had to. You move around with the kids. You're up. You're jumping. There's a little pre-K, kinder, first grade. You're moving around, and as a teacher, wearing jeans with a nice shirt or your school spirit shirt, and it raised money for the school as a fundraiser, was never a problem to the parents or to the learning of the kids. It never impeded anything. And if this is causing so much stress to our teachers, why do it?
Safety, security, COVID, the pandemic, vacancies, staff development, onboarding new employees, recruiting and marketing, and we're gonna have a conversation about jeans? I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't understand that if we're going to worry about teachers wearing jeans, and yet all of these other things that we have to take care of.
The teachers are in charge of making sure the kids learn, that they're safe all day with them, that they get to school on time.
And they can do that better in jeans.
But if that's something that's just caught, and you have no idea, sir, because I'm speaking for the community, I'm being their voice, and being my voice, and it's not just 5 or 10, it's a lot. What is so bad about fundraising? I mean, and we're the ones that are with the kids all day. Why take something away that we're okay with? Why are they not worried about security? Why are they not worried about other things? Why are they worried about what we're wearing, is what I'm hearing. That's one thing.
The only thing that was mentioned was jeans once a week, ma'am. I'm not sure exactly, I'm not exactly sure how that plays into everything else that we're trying to do to get schools open. But again, I'd like to defer. The principals own their campuses, and we have decentralized in a manner where our principals can make a decision, right, on, and if a principal says no tennis shoes, I support the principal.
So the principals can make the decisions for their campuses this year and say, you know what, I'm going to let you
They've
guys.
always been able to make that
Okay,
decision.
so then where is the miscommunication where somebody, you know, just like you said earlier, of people thinking, well, I'm gonna be reassigned and this and that. Where is when we first interviewed for superintendents, I said that I want somebody who's strong in communication, and if somebody they miscommunicate, if somebody doesn't understand what's going on, they don't understand that they're being transferred or they're not being demoted, if they have a question, somebody who can answer their questions, whether it's HR, whether it's, you know, whatever department, who's communicating? I know I shouldn't have to tell the whole, but they asked me, so I'm going to say, I'll see what I can do. I'll ask for you, but I'm not going to go tell you what to do. Who's the communicator around here that should be explaining all these things to them?
Well, to me, the principals run their campus. So I think we issue guidance as a cabinet. We have Mr. Buttermer and Ms. Solano, right, responsible for communicating to, not that I'm throwing them under the bus, but they articulate guidance from the cabinet meetings to our principals. Again, like when somebody said no tennis shoes, well, we said comfortable and practical shoes for the job. How that interpreted to no tennis shoes, and again, if we're gonna argue about tennis shoes,
No.
I mean, of all the things that we're dealing with right now, we're going to argue about tennis shoes.
No, sir, and the thing is, and I've got screenshots of emails that go out, they're very vague, they're gray, it's not black and white, this is what you're gonna do, it's kind of like business casual, professional casual, you know, this, in Weslaco, we have to be specific, detailed, black and white. If those emails are going out and people don't understand, they're gonna make assumptions, and they're gonna say, oh, this is what it means, and they're inferring, like we've said before, this is what it means, because they're not being told exactly, I guess, what it is.
So I'll mention this, because this is a double-edged sword, okay? And sometimes guidance is designed to be ambiguous, right? There's a level of ambiguity in what we say, just like the law, right? To allow for interpretation, right? Now, if we tell the principals, okay, you must wear the purple shirt with khakis and these type of shoes. Ooh, now you're micromanaging me. Right? Now you're telling me exactly what to wear. We don't want to get to that point.
No, but we can say let
what
the
we want to be
principals
able to
decide
say
which
is
campus.
follow the dress code, right, in accordance with the employee handbook. If you have to ask yourself, am I dressed okay? You're probably not, right? But again, we're trying to allow principals to run their campus.
So it's
right?
up to, so we're saying right now, whoever's listening, it's up to each campus to decide what their based on the employee handbook, of course, it's up to each principal to decide what their employees can.
It's always been that way.
Okay, because that was the misinterpretation. that
It's
everybody
always,
had.
principals have always had, you read it right out of the employee handbook, right? And it states, and it even talks about jeans.
Okay, because I've heard teachers tell me that principals say, this is coming from the top. This is coming from the top.
Well, I don't play the blame game, you know, I say what I say, and whatever I say, right or wrong, I own it, right?
Okay.
And so, if it's coming from the top, well, I have them call me.
Well,
Okay.
and I think what Jackie's trying to say here, Doctor, and I don't want us to downplay this. This is just, because at the end of the day, yes, we have security, we have all these things to worry about, but at the end of the day, our staff are the ones teaching our kids. They're the ones in the classroom 8 hours a day. They're the ones there. So they got to be comfortable when it's all said and done. And I think a lot of staff around here, even I can't recall, or I don't know if you remember the last time you were in a classroom, Mr. Aguilar, just because I look that way, but not to call him out directly, but I was in a classroom. And it's all about comfort while you're sitting there teaching. It's not about, oh, let me wear a tie. And I don't wear ties. I wear them up here sometimes because Mark looks good, and then I want to look good too. But I don't wear ties because I hate wearing ties. That's not my goal. And for us to sit here and try to, I don't want that downplayed. I want if we're going to say teacher or administrators or principals can direct their campuses, that's fine. Then we'll let the principals deal with that. But it is important. I don't think it's any less important than security and safety and all of that, because it all goes hand in hand. We are starting a new school year, and yes, I know there was a lot of information covered here, but remember, we hired you because you were a operations person, specialist for operations. Our district was not broken with teachers or with low scores in campuses or anything like that. So all we can do there is improve and get better. Our district was not broken like that. It's broken, and it's clearly, from looking at this right here, there's still some lack of attention here to our HR department. And that was my biggest concern in May. In no disrespect, when you guys were first hired, I called it out because we hired two inexperienced, two novice people to run a personnel department like this with this amount of employees. And here we are in June, July, still making mistakes. Whether this is a mistake or not, or you're going to own to this, I don't want this information that was presented to us. I want to see a plan to correct some of this, because this is not, and that's why I asked, what's the minimum, what's the mid, and what's the maximum for some of these positions? Because it almost seems like they went to the maximum for instance, this administrator, and I know it's very small print, but the administrative assistant, what's the minimum, what's the mid, and what's the max for that position? Because it almost seems like we just jumped to the max.
Different. There are.
So
The level they're at is based on their
but they're coming from an office clerk to an administrative assistant. To me, that would be a level 1.
So the levels are according
To me, that doesn't.
So what did you use as a basis when you were allowed to appoint? Did you appoint staff in your department, or
So,
how was that done?
so just to answer the question about the assignments, pretty much it was a team effort. We all looked at the direction of Dr. Coronado, staff that we had available, because staff was being moved. So the team looked at the staff.
And who was the team?
Well, it was the leadership team that you see here.
Everyone here.
Yeah, well, Ms. Solano and Ms. Gomez were not with us at the time. But when we looked at the staff and we sat down, because there were several that needed administrative assistance because of the reorganization, and the direction from Dr. Coronado was, look at the staff, look at experience, look at performance, look at ability, look at, talk to people, talk to the people that supervise this staff right now, and find out, what their level of expertise is. Talk to the staff themselves, that you're looking at. Find out what their level of experience is. Look at their resumes. Look at their personnel folders. What have they done before? What are the responsibilities going to be for that position? And can they fill that position? So there were a number of factors that we looked at.
That you and the team looked at. Have you've gone to trainings?
Yes.
Is that a common practice that you see across districts, where a superintendent will tell staff to hire like that at will, without posting, without going through a formal process?
So I've never been to trainings that discuss what other superintendents do
Or no,
in
just
practice.
HR trainings?
But
Or any
in
workshops, conferences?
Yeah, in HR trainings, yes. I mean, we have had trainings on DK, we have had trainings on DC, so we do know that there are certain positions that the superintendent can assign according to policy. And then we do know the ones that were required to open up because they're certified positions. So that we have had, but I've never sat in a forum before where you have a multitude of superintendents and they kind of tell you.
No,
well,
just a
this is
training,
what-
because I got a trainees and they'll train you on that current subject area and tell you about common practices, best practices, liability, things like that.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. So right now, I'm pretty sure, because this is probably one that'll be viewed, and we'll probably see other HR directors looking at this as well too, where you see that the superintendent gave authority to his staff to hire at will. And like you said, you were contacting individuals, you were talking to them, you were looking at their evaluations, you were going around asking everybody else, hey, what do you think about this person? Those type of things. So is that just something common that you see in normal districts? Does that increase liability? Is it an issue, like it's just best practices? Because that's what we want to do here in WISD, best practices, especially with HR. Because we have not had that in a while when we go backward. So at what point do you step in as the HR executive director now? Because that's what you are now, right? You were the director, now you're the executive director. At what point do you step in and tell the superintendent, you know what, maybe this process isn't the best process that we should take right now? Maybe, you know what, you've been here in Weslaco ISD for quite a while. You were here during the audit. You were here when you talked about changing the processes in HR, and you all had an action plan on how to correct that. None of that was in the action plan that you all presented as far as performing those type of duties like you all did when you hired these individuals. So my question is at what point should you have probably said, Dr. Coronado, this is probably not the best practice to do. This is probably not going to sit well with, just the hiring process in general. So at no point was that an issue, a thought, or maybe we shouldn't be doing this way, where we're just kind of going around asking everybody how they feel, and instead of posting and actually interviewing and looking at a committee that could make a proper judgment and assessment on individuals. Because like I said, I work at central office. I know a lot of individuals. I'll talk to them as far as the directors or coordinators or what may be, right? And I don't have the chance to sit down and talk with their actual clerical staff or things like that. So I don't have, and usually people, like I said, they're not going to give up great personnel. If they have them, they're not going to give them up. So I just don't understand how at some point someone didn't say, this is not how business is usually done, and we should take a safer route and and maybe implement a better process. And that's my opinion. I think we could have done a better process. And I think at some point someone should have stepped in, because that's the job of the support staff of the superintendent. His deputy superintendent, his assistants as well. Everyone that's in line has a role and responsibility. But no one at one point said, maybe this isn't a good idea. Especially after what we just came through and came out of. That's what kind of bothers me the most, whether it's 9 positions, 17, or whatever the number is. One opportunity is one opportunity lost. So that's my question. At some point, no one brought it up and said, hey, this is not probably a good idea just to appoint at will.
I understand too that when you work with people, you get to know how they work because they've been here for years. It's like, okay, your interview is what I've seen you do all these years. That kind of also, they've been here for so long. I know how you are. I know how you work. I know how you work. I get it. I get that you already know who's capable of what because you work with them every day. But the point of this is the way it's portrayed is where was the equal opportunity employment? That's the problem.
So that's back to my question. Like, at any point, did anybody say, this is not a good process? Or maybe we should relook at best practices?
So discussions did involve, is this something we post? Is this something we, look at? But again, the discussion always came back to, well, we do have these about 30 individuals that do need to be distributed. Let's look at where, from that group we can pull. So that discussion did take place on, do we post it? Do we not? Do we do an internal? Do we? And at the end of the day, the decision was made by the team. Look, let's just move forward. Let's, get the information that we know that we have. We have to make these selections. We have things that we're multiple things that we're, doing at the same time. So, I mean, in hindsight, yes, going back and just like Dr. Coronado said, and you know what, should have just opened it up and let everybody apply. But at the time, the decision by the group was, according to DK and what we know that our superintendent is allowed to do.
According to policy.
Yeah, let's move in this direction.
My next question is that these positions that I was talking about that just really have title changes, and that's what some of them are. They're just title changes. However you want to look at them, they're just title changes. They're still in the same areas. And they saw, like I said, 32,000. Data entry clerk, administrative assistant, 22,000. I'm sorry. You have, you know, we're just slapping on executive director again as well, 25,000. We're seeing office clerk go into, like I said, administrative assistant, 15,000. None of the people that were being removed ended up in any of these positions. And I find it hard that out of 30 or 40 or whatever the number is of people at central office that worked there, none of them had any qualifications that were good enough to be considered for these positions. None of them had the qualifications and experience to even get a shot at this job through an interview. So,
Right, because they all did. They were all on the table when the decision was made. So they all had the equal opportunity because we looked at everybody. We looked at all of them. And it wasn't like we're gonna leave these out and only look at these. It was the entire group. And it was constant. And I'll say, you know, a lot of it, and again, at the time, Dan was not yet the executive. He was another HR director. So at the time, it was a lot of conferences, individual conferences with people, conferences with departments, with department directors, speaking to supervisors, looking at the department, because we knew the direction that we were given by Dr. Coronado according to the overages that we had from TASB and also the direction from the forensic audit. So we knew that there were gonna have to be moves. And this was not something that one person decided. And it wasn't something that just the leadership team decided either, because we had to talk to directors and we had to talk to supervisors. And we had to discuss with coordinators and strategists and everybody to get this feedback. So it wasn't one person or even just, you know, 10 people making the decision. We did collaborate with multiple people and supervisory people and coordinators.
you know, but at the end of the day, looking at things now, what would you say about the process? He's already stated that he'd take a different direction in the process and how it was handled. What would you say
I
as the
agree
HR director?
100%. We've had those discussions. And going back, we would go back and say, you know what, this is, and you know, to reiterate what Dr. Coronado said, he did. When we were having those discussions, he said, no more. From this point forward, every single position posted, and he said that to us, you know. Hindsight's 2020. I look back now and I see that maybe some of the things that, you know, I advised you all on or directed you on, maybe we should have done differently, even though we could have done, even though it was within, you know, the rights of this office and you know, and the superintendency to do that. We're just not going to do that anymore. From this point on, this is how it's going to be. And we did have that conversation.
And
we did
nobody,
do that.
and there was no external influences or anything whatsoever in this decision, in this process to decide to operate this way. And the only reason I'm asking that is because if I go back to the audit and you look at both and you do a comparison of both of how this turned out, it looks exactly the same.
No.
And so that's the problem that I have, because later on when we have one, it looks exactly the same.
No, sir.
Other than there's, I'm sorry to chime in.
No,
Totally. So,
please.
other than the fact that no board members influenced the hiring decision. So,
We won't know that, Doctor, because there's phone calls being made, so we'll never know that.
And the reason I asked you
well,
was
I'm telling you that not one board member has ever called me to say, hey, Dino, can you take a look at this person?
No, never.
and they did it in
Maybe
the
not
past
you,
either.
Doctor,
I'm
but-
not saying that. I'm not asking you.
So-
That's why I'm asking her,
so
because
if
in
I-
the past, if you look at the Weaver report, they didn't go through the superintendent. The superintendent just signed a stamp. That it was going around the superintendent. So
Right.
that's why I wanted to ask, when this process took place, we need to make sure that every single decision we make is valid and that we can stand
Absolutely.
up for it and defend it and say, hey, I went off of a specific criteria. I compared
Absolutely.
individuals. We had a committee. But this is informal because, I don't know, you're saying it was all of them, but then it wasn't them. And I mean, I don't know who was actually there, who decided on each different employee. How do I know it wasn't two of you or three of you?
So
That's the process.
I understand what you're saying, and I get it. And if I were sitting where you are, I would be asking the same questions. I do want to, I'm going to be open because this is a workshop. I do feel like my integrity is being questioned, and I do want to address that. Because if there's one thing that I value, it is my integrity. If there's one thing, and anyone, and you all don't know me well enough, you've never worked with me, you've never been a colleague or someone that I supervise, and you've never supervised me. But you can ask people who have or who've worked with me, and not just the people in this team. You can go back decades, and they will tell you that that is something that I value very deeply. I'll also tell you that many of the situations that were, I guess, investigated and brought forth in the Weaver report happened at my former campus, happened in situations that we were directly affected. And it was something that was very upsetting for me as an administrator to go through a whole process and develop questions and scenarios and build and build an interview committee that you know is representing and go through the process, submit your recommendation, get it in on time, and be anxious because you know this is an awesome candidate and I just don't want anybody else, you know, and then to find out that, no, I can't. So please understand that when Dan and I came on board and even when we applied for the position, and that was always at the forefront. The Weaver report is at the forefront. The practices that had been in place before have always been something that we consider. We don't take any of the decisions that we make lightly. We understand that these are people's lives and these are people's careers. And so I just want to be able, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to state that up front and out loud, that at no point, I don't look at names and numbers and see them as names and numbers. There are people. Those are families. And, you know, like Dr. Coronado mentioned in the beginning, this is Weslaco. We all know each other. We're all friends. Many of us are related. Many of us have graduated together. I mean, this is a small town. This is what it is. So none of us up here take that responsibility lightly.
You know, you hit on something that's very important. You know, I called the workshop along with Mr. Trevino and in combination with Ms. Ustaita, because there was so much talk out there over summer, and we all know those that work in the district how summer gets. It's all summer rumors, right? Everybody's being moved, people getting their jobs, whatnot. And most of this stuff right here that I heard, I thought, no way. There's no way. I even called you multiple times and I questioned you, and you told me no, that it wasn't true in some cases. And then I find out that and some of it is, you know, that some of these things were done this way. And he's taking full responsibility, and he's saying that he authorized it, and that's fine. But it doesn't sit well with the community. So this is an opportunity not of a blame game, like he said. It's just getting down to what are the answers, how did we get here, and how do we never come here again? And this is an opportunity for you to get on the mic. It's like I told people, most employees don't have a chance to say what they need to say. And that's why it's so important that employees have a voice, whether it's on social media or whether it's here at the open podium or whatever the case may be. Because that's how you address issues that they can't bring to the forefront because they're so used to being blacklisted and targeted and stuff from the past. And that I saw firsthand while I was here, we had an individual that was targeted and then we had to step in. But, you know, it was happening. You know, I know firsthand. You know how I know? And I always told this, and I don't share this with anybody, because when I was at City Hall and my wife was standing with me across the aisle, they told her, "You're the first one to go when this is over." So I know how. So I firsthand saw how Weslaco ISD was, because that happened at City Hall, and I came on here and I said, you know what? I kept an open mind. I was fair to everybody. I didn't care who you voted for. The fact that you voted, that's all that matters. And I just try to be fair with everybody. So I'm not trying to target you or blame you. I want to give you, I mean, the whole point of us asking for this workshop is so everybody has a voice and can say, okay, how did we get here? But now I see some of the process, and I understand that you're taking ownership, and I don't ever want to go back to this again, because I completely disagree with anybody losing their opportunity. I think if you post 10 days, you have hiring committees, and you take it to the superintendent, and you bring it to the board, it's the safest way to ensure that everybody had an opportunity. And that's my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that's my opinion. And I thank you for coming up here and voicing.
Yes, and I'm going to agree with your opinion, yes. And moving forward, that has been the direction that that is the direction that we're taking.
Thank you for the information.
Sure. Thank you.
Going back to the transfers, just so we can close this up for in the future, because this policy does say reassignments are defined as in the same position, department, or facility that does not necessitate a change in the contract of an employee. In a contract, we have probationary contracts, we have term contracts, we have continuing contracts, and then we have other type of contract. So any of those people that have those contracts, from now on, if it's going to be a reassignment, it should be within the same position, department, or facility, right? So we're all on the same page with that. And I saw here that you guys highlighted on policy DFFA local about reduction in force, that we're planning to reduce personnel costs. But if we're going to do a reduction in force, we should actually have a whole approve a program change, right, on DFFB.
So, ma'am, I threw that in there because according to the TASB study, we had to find a way to reduce one of the methods, to reduce the 168 folks that we were overstaffed one was through attrition, and that's when I laid out the definitions. Excuse me, one was through attrition, and the other one was through a reduction in force. So we opted for attrition. The only reason I brought that policy for the RIF was one to establish how we would the process or criteria rather that we would use for a reduction in force. However, that wasn't a route that we chose to do.
That was my question. Are we
Yes.
doing that? Do we have to
We-
go through
we
a whole
are-
program change?
We,
No.
we have not conducted a reduction in force.
Okay.
The reason I brought that in there was that could have been an option that we could have exercised as a district, and we did not do that.
Okay, that's clear now. The last thing that I was wanting to talk about, that retention stipend that we mentioned, and I don't know who, there's a lot of this is a hot topic, and I don't even know how the board feels about that. But we did put, even though a board doesn't have to approve ESSER funds, and I've told people this, the board does not have to approve ESSER funds. Admin, they decide what they're going to do. It doesn't need board approval, right? But we did have a meeting last year and put that out in public and said, for the next 3 years, and I remember we went to Mr. Aguilar for hours and said, sir, can you help us out? And we put that out there, for the next 3 years, there would be a retention stipend. And I understand some people left. I understand they didn't stay the whole year and got some money, so that didn't work out. So in my head, when I'm thinking retention stipend, I'm thinking, you come to WISD and teach for us for that year, you get your money at the end of the year for teaching, like an annual stipend for those 3 years. That's what I had in my head, and that's what I thought we had put out to our public for this year and next year. I never found out we undid that decision. I understand it doesn't have to go by the board, but I don't know what the board and you guys have any feedback on this.
May I respond to that?
Yes, of course.
Before that's chimed in. So I've been talking to, I'm talking to all campuses this week. I was at 4 yesterday. And so I did bring up the ESSER stipend. That's a common question. And so I'll explain exactly what I told them. When we got here, or when I got here, and even when I was a TEA monitor and I was over 3 districts, using retention stipends out of ESSER was really a bad idea. But districts did it anyway, and so they did it to not just retain, but look, I get it. Teachers work hard. I'll be the first one to say, teachers work hard. They don't get paid enough. We owe them more money. They deserve a higher salary. All of the above. You'll never get an argument from me for that. So what we did was, we looked at the pay scale, looking at the budget, right? And if you go back to the TASB review, the salary review, they gave us the options of 1, 2, or 3%. So I said, okay, let's go for the max percent, and what does that equal to? So again, and this is merely averages. So the average was the 3%, which we opted for, was the 1,700. We went back to do the math to say, okay, we can afford the 3% pay raise across the board. Let's increase the bus drivers to $20 an hour. Let's do an adjustment to project the minimum salary or the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think we could afford the $14 an hour in most of the other manual trade systems or positions. And so we had to do some autocorrects for a lot of the salaries. And so we found out what that amount was. And then we still had this ESSER thing standing with us. Now, we know we've already done the math, right? It's going to cost us between $4.6 and $4.9 million to issue the $2,000 stipend, right? So we knew that that was an either or. Well, okay, so that comes out because it's taxed at a different rate, right? We knew that they were gonna end up with about $1,700, right, across the board. Well, so then we looked at what can we sustain? So the thought was, well, if we give them the stipend, right? We give them the stipend and we don't do the pay raise, will that suffice? Well, you know, with school districts compete, right? And it's like, okay, who's gonna be first to issue the pay raise? Well, I decided to say, you know what, Weslaco is gonna lead the front, we're gonna go to charge, right? We're gonna offer the 3%, right? First one out of the chute. You know, and in the Army, we always say the first one over the wall always gets bloody, right? I mean, and we were the first one over the wall. We said 3%, let's move forward, right? And we'll use the ESSER funding, we'll divert it for learning loss, we'll pull all of the learning pieces and program instructional delivery systems out of ESSER. We were allowed to use HVACs. We haven't passed a bond since, and I say all this, believe me. We haven't passed a bond in 2008. That was $25 million. It failed in 2014. It failed again in 2016, right? So it's been 14 years since we've last passed a bond, right? An air conditioner, even going through the buy board, means you have to buy a like item. Well, that's like saying, well, I'm going to buy my flip phone 14 years from now. Well, technology changes, things move, so that means we went to a design build because technology's changed. So now we have to figure out how to pay for our HVAC systems. You know, maintenance has always been done, but let's face it, even in your own homes, right? It's got a wear and tear life. So okay, so we figured out we've got some money in reserve. What's coming to the board next week is our HVAC system, and it costs us more than what we thought. We don't have enough money, so now we have to say, okay, which schools don't get an air conditioner, right? I was at Mary Hogue, and they said, well, it's B. Garza that shouldn't get it, but you know, that was just a little competition. So in any event, they understood. Now, I was gonna.
But let me ask you very, very quickly, because it makes it sound like the air conditioner's completely down or completely broken at some of these campuses. That is not the fact, right? That is not the fact. Right? Why aren't we replacing the oldest units or the units that are requiring the most maintenance because they're just at the last, instead of voicing it like that? Because the way it's coming across from you is, well, we're gonna do the ESSER, but Margot and so and so and so and so and so and so, you're not gonna get an AC because that's not the way. I mean, everybody has an AC.
I didn't finish what I was gonna say, but so there was a plan for ESSER. This was before I got here, right? There was a plan to prioritize which campuses needed an HVAC system, right? Going back to your point, right? This is the priority of folks that need air conditioning systems. That priority was established through assessments or what have you. But that list was done before I got here, right? Still allocating, right, money for stipends, okay? So the thought is it's $4.7 million to do the $2,000 across the board stipend. Then the question becomes, because we've had so many people leave, how many people would get a stipend? Now, I will be the first to say, right, that I think that we're on a trajectory to pay our teachers. My goal is for us to be the first district to hit $60,000 for a 0-year teacher, right? And I believe that in my plan that we can do it within the next 5 years. Right now, we're at 52.8. So that's an increase of sustainable salaries, right, of $7,200. That's a sustainable salary, okay? So it's an election year. I get it, right? So what we did, right, most recently in talking to campuses, right, it's still up to the board if we want to issue the stipends. My recommendation, right, is to not, do it, because I think we can use that money for something else. Now, that doesn't mean that's my recommendation. Well, you know, I won't be the first superintendent that says, okay, that's your recommendation, thank you, but we're gonna go this way, right? I'm okay with that. That's a board decision. If you choose, right, you just have to give us the guidance on which teachers or which staff in terms of the date, right? In other words, because the guidance will be, well, if you were here in 2021 on January 1st of 2022 and you provided, you know, 60 days or whatever, we don't have that guidance. There's no guidance, and there has been no guidance to issue a $2,000 stipend. You know, I wouldn't accept it. I personally, you know, I would say no, because I've only got here in April, right? So to me, I wouldn't be worthy of a stipend. We hired folks in June. They wouldn't be worthy of a stipend, but we don't have that guidance from the board.
Well, I know that we prorated it last year. You know, it was prorated by whatever month you were here, and it dwindled down to.
Right.
That's what I was thinking we were going to do, and I thought it was already put in place for the next 3 years.
But no, that guidance was never issued, ma'am. So we didn't put. My understanding was that for the 2021 stipend, right, was prorated, right? But the next stipend wasn't. There was no guidance for the second or the third stipend on who receives it, right? And the reason for that was because the retention stipend that was issued last year didn't retain 100% of the employees.
Right.
My question, oh, sorry. But my thing is this. We have to be very transparent, okay? And I know that you stated that the administration is doing an assessment and they're looking at ACs and roofs. And I've asked this question multiple times, and Mr. Garza and the person before him, Mr. Riojas, the maintenance director, I asked him, the minute I got here and we started talking about these things, I asked him, why weren't these a priority and why weren't these classified? Everybody knows you're just not gonna ignore a leaky roof at home. Everybody knows these things. Everybody knows that we live in South Texas and you're just not gonna let your AC be broken and just go on your regular day. You're gonna do what you need to do to fix it, whether you got the money or you don't. So why did the school district, because roofs don't all go out at the same time, and neither do AC systems, and I know some of them have already met maturity. So they're pretty much gonna have to be switched out. They're still operating, but they may have to be switched out soon. And I asked them before, and I don't know if you saw those meetings, but I asked them, why did you have them as a priority? I asked Mr. Garza, then I asked before him, Mr. Riojas, and they said we did. We had them as a priority, because I asked them, when you all spent over $40 million between 17 and 2019, because your bond didn't pass, and you took it out of the general fund and you got a loan, why wasn't that allocated to roofs and ACs? And they said it was, but the board had a different, and this is recorded and it's on video. And multiple times they told me, we did have it planned, we did have it as a priority, but the board decided to go in a different direction. Okay, and I'll tell you, 10 million of those 40 something, I went back and looked at your projects. You did a 1.9 million on HVACs. The security access controls was only 190,000 at the time. Security, fire alarms, roofing, minimal. The band hall was probably the largest project out of that time. I said, and then the rest was fencing, turf, etc., athletic remodels, and things like that. Roofs and ACs and that money was never a full priority because you would have spent all your money on it. You would have fixed it at the time. So you need to be transparent and also tell our teachers, because it's depending on whatever the board decides. Do we want to give out stipends and do I want to give out stipends, or do we want to take care of what needs to be taken care of? Because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
You're not going to see this money again. And depending on how you use it, it's going to fall on the backs of the taxpayers, and they're already looking at a tax increase anyways that has to come, possibly. Okay? So my thing is that you just really have to, I would say, I mean, I don't know, you're caught in a tough situation, and so is the board. Are you going to go forward with stipends and avoid improvements, or are we going to do improvements? But we need to realize, like you said, you inherited this mess, just like we did. It should have been taken care of, and it wasn't. It was overlooked. Oh, time and time again, most of our discussions that we've been talking about are things that have been overlooked over the years.
If you look at the initial ESSER plan, again, this was done before I got here.
Yes, I know.
You know, I saw ESSER 2, ESSER 3, and all I saw was schools and HVACs, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw some learning loss. I saw some other programs because they lost the ACE grant, well, we're gonna just funnel money into this. So I didn't agree with any of it.
Right.
Okay? So, I mean, I just would have done things differently. So now we're at a crossroads of, okay, do we have an assessment done on HVAC? Maybe we need some of it, yes, maybe we don't. We still need to address learning loss. We still need to address teacher salaries. We still need to, there are so many things, again, and not to make a mockery of this, but there are so many things that we need to look at, yet we still talk about jeans and tennis shoes. And again, I don't mean that in a facetious way. It's just that there are so many things that we have to look at as a district because of years, right? Years of neglect. Okay? 14 years since we've passed the bond. We owe $28 million in M&O that we're paying $2.5 million, which is equivalent to 42 teacher salaries, right? Why? Because we can't pass a bond. The number one reason why bonds fail is because there's no confidence in the leadership of the school district, right? Both board and superintendent.
Right.
Okay? So we have to work together to build the confidence and the trust of the community so that we can pass a bond.
Well, then, before we move for a bond, is there anything that we need to do with the tax rate?
So my understanding now is we talked about this today, and it looks like the tax rate on the M&O side is gonna go down, and the INS is gonna stay the same.
At 4 pennies.
At
And-
4
And we
pennies.
don't need to increase it at all.
Uh,
You're not transferring out of debt service.
So if,
You're not transferring to debt service.
well, we'd have to pass a TRE for that, right?
But it doesn't need to be done. Because I know that the last time we talked, Mr. Andres, you need to go back and look at the video, he stated that it needed to be done. Because INS was always, was a little too low.
It's too
But
low.
has that changed?
So the INS, I think it's gonna stay right at 4 pennies. If not, it's gonna drop, which I disagree with, right? I think it needs to stay at 4 pennies. Here's the problem. To maintain that INS rate, we need to pass a bond, right? Because we need to be able to, because otherwise we're gonna be, to compress, we're gonna have to be forced to lower the INS rate because of the amount of debt we have, right? So in order for us to keep the tax rate the same, because you want to keep tax rate stable, we have, and I sent this to you all last week, we have, in Weslaco, we have one of the I think it's the lowest tax rate, right, in the Rio Grande Valley, right? We're under $1. Everybody else is $1.12, $1.14.
Originally, we were at $1.15. I think
Right.
that was the last time I checked, it was around $1.15 that the citizens of Weslaco approved before everything was done.
So now we're looking at 96 cents?
The compression,
Yes,
yes. But that's what I'm saying, as you go down and then they compensate you on the M&O side.
on the, yes.
But they had shifted everything over from the debt side. When do we start maintaining that side? You said it doesn't have to increase at all then. That INS does not have to go up. You can
No,
go out and get a bond and it's not gonna go up, but
Right,
you get a bond.
if we get a bond. So at a minimum right now, I think we probably need to pass, to keep it at 4 cents, we're gonna need to pass a minimum of about $12 to $13 million, right? So,
And that won't increase taxes at all.
no, because in fact, our taxes will drop if we don't, right? And so some people, yeah, well, let's not pass the bond, but okay, so what do we do about facilities?
Right.
So remember that the state doesn't fund capital projects,
Right.
right? It's the voters that have to approve our capital projects. We have, Weslaco High is our oldest building. I really think we need a new school, but I just think that, we really are financially, we have a solid footing in it. We just need to earn the confidence and the trust of our community so that we can pass a bond and move forward.
Sir, and when I emailed you about human capital, I emailed you when it came to retention stipends, and I said, I get it, I know that HVAC needs, updates and all these energy controls, but when, in Weslaco, you want to pass a bond, and with everything that we've seen so far, with everything that's been changing in this audit, and there's elections in the board, and, some new soup, you feel the discontent, and like you said, some of it is the loud minority. I get it. There's a loud minority, and you also have a lot of people who are very happy. We hear a lot of happy, and things are progressing, and things are going in a positive way. But if we want to pass a bond and we want to keep our community happy, and I know you're saying it's a joke, it's a mockery that we are having to go through dress code and we have to go through a retention stipend when we have other things to worry about. But the reality is, those are the things, it's the human capital. And I took my email here, and it says, the most valuable of all capital is that invested in human beings. When we invest in the human beings, we get our return back. And if we want to pass a bond, I'm thinking this is a positive and it's a good way to start. Hey, we were going to reward our employees. We're asking them to stay 25, 30 more minutes a day, daily, because of the buses. And we're taking away your jeans, and you're not going to wear jeans anymore. And even though I don't care what you guys say, and we're not going to give you a retention stipend either. I mean, it's going downhill, not uphill for some. And as a joke and as a mockery as it sounds, we want to pass a bond. We have to really think about that.
Well,
That's
but they
human capital.
got a pay raise, ma'am.
Yes,
they
I
received-
understand, but a lot of other districts did too, pay raises and stipends.
So again, I've said this before, right? I think we have other needs. I think that a stipend is not sustainable, right? A pay raise is sustainable. In 3 years, hypothetically, if we did 3% every year at $1,700 for the next 3 years, their pay goes up 17 times 3. Who does the math? 17, 34, 50,
There you go.
51. So it goes up $5,100 in the next 3 years versus a $2,000 stipend that's not TRS credible, and it just goes away. Now, I'm not saying no. What I am saying is that it's not my recommendation. However, right, I understand that this board as a body, right, created a system of paying stipends, not knowing whether or not teachers and staff were going to get a pay raise, right? Is that an accurate statement? We didn't know that we were going to get a 3% pay raise, right? No staff knew that they were going to get it. Next year, and the way we're looking, again, I'm scared because now we're looking at a 5% plus the salaries, plus the employee. So again, I think there's a better way to maximize and capitalize on ESSER funding so that when we look back in 5 years, we can say, look at what we did with our ESSER funding. Now, you have a valid argument in human capital. You have a human capital. That argument stands, and I take that seriously as well. And I said, if this body decides to issue that $2,000, and okay, we're going to have to find or divert some of the ESSER money to pay the $4.7 million, because that's what it's going to cost us. And we need the criteria. So in other words, who gets it? And that criteria is not known. Again, I'm open for that criteria.
We can discuss that.
I personally, I'll donate mine, or I won't accept it, right? Because to me, I wasn't here for all of 21, 22. So to me, I don't deserve it. So, but I don't know how you feel about teachers that got here in January.
It'll be a future topic.
It would be a future topic to discuss.
Right.
And I know you mentioned Dr. Rivera earlier, how everyone always brings him up and compares him to you, and it's a compliment. And he's kind of like a legend around Weslaco. Everybody loves Dr. Rivera. And people always tell me is he would always, when we look back 5 years ago, we don't remember, or we don't think about, the HVAC got, they got new energy controls, or they remember Dr. Rivera took care of his staff. Dr. Rivera took care of his people. He was able to do both somehow. So that's why I'm saying human capital goes a long way, because that's what people appreciate, of course. And going a little after that subject, the COVID days, because we're talking about taking care of people. Are we going to still give them those 5 COVID days this year?
So that was a TEA action that allowed us to give those 5 days. TEA sent out guidance on the 1st of August, and it doesn't allow us to do that. Now, again, as a district, if you want to pay for them, right, we didn't put that in our budget, right? But if you want to give the 5 days, then you let me know and I'll draw up the recommendation and I'll use ESSER funding to pay for
No,
No,
those
it was
days.
just a question. Are other
so-
districts doing that,
No.
though?
No.
No one's doing
No
that?
one's doing
No one's
Okay,
doing it.
that's the question I want you to,
So-
answered, okay.
You know, well, I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, and so, I know we talked about earlier, Coach Trevino mentioned about one of the reasons why Dr. Coronado was hired was, for operation, leadership. I think all 7 board members, kind of saw that in him. And but the other thing we did see in him was the strong in finance. And I think, we all felt like, okay, you know what, he's gonna come in, lead the operations, guide us financially, and so, I think, it's a tough, situation that we're in, because we do want to take care of our human capital, and we do want to be fiscally responsible also, and with recommendations. So, I think that's where we have to trust. We have to trust, and I know you've owned up to some of these errors, in hiring and posting of positions, and thank you for that. But I think, it'd be silly to think that this is the last time we're going to make a mistake, right? And we're going to learn from this and improve our procedures, our protocols, and go from there. I, as a board member, don't want to have to approve every single position. That's not what I want to do, And so, I think, like you said earlier, I think we're doing a lot of good things, and I think I've said this before. This district is doing a lot of good things. We have a lot of good employees. A lot of hard workers. We have a big task ahead, 2,200 employees, almost 17,000 students. And, I can't even imagine the task of organizing and leading that. But, I think, this was definitely a good discussion, in an effort to be transparent. And thank you for all that information that you provided to us there.
Thank you to you and all the teams. I know it was a lot of work putting everything together. I really do appreciate all your hard work that you put into this.
And in closing, sir, like I said, piggybacking off of Dr. Rodriguez, I said, it troubles me, though, that still we had to go through this opportunity. We're an equal opportunity employer, and that's something that we're really pushing and striving, where everybody here has an opportunity. And we've seen that people were appointed and had massive salaries increases, in some cases within the same department, and just changing titles. You see reassignments that we still haven't really gotten an answer as how structured and how they were made. I'll give you credit that you did admit that you gave them the authority. Don't blame the HR director or any of the other individuals that participated in that process, because they were following orders, right? They got orders from their superintendent and they went forward. Do I disagree with the process? Yes. And that's kind of something that we talked about as far as having additional assistance or help there, because I think somebody should have caught it and brought it up at least at some time. Because it's very hard. When people see this and they get it with public information requests, they're going to see exactly what I saw, and it's very hard to defend, and that's because in this situation, we didn't have anything to do with it, apparently. There was no structure, there was no rubric. I can't verify the consideration of qualifications and experiences. And I'm telling you that as far as appointing and reassigning, you were contacted multiple times. You were told that this is a concern, and that this was something that's probably going to concern, and then you did admit that it got out of hand, and that that you agree that some of the decisions you go back and change it. I said I'm really thinking, and I'm going to let you know right now. I was going to do it before, but I'm really thinking that our employees, look, they're more than employees, okay? They're parents. They live here. They pay taxes here. They pay multiple roles within our community, and sometimes they honestly just felt like employees or ID numbers. They didn't really have a voice for years. They felt oppressed. They didn't have an equal opportunity for employment. They deserve it, and that should be the Weslaco way. And it hasn't been like that for a long time. And like I said, it's not about micromanagement. It's not about who gets hired. It's the fact that people have a chance to get hired. Okay, and we really need to look at policy as a board, because our responsibility is not to you. Our responsibility is to our community, to our staff, to our students, to the parents, to make sure that they always have qualified, experienced individuals, and that things aren't being abused or taken out of hand or mistakes are made. Because we don't have opportunities to make mistakes. That's not why we got hired. The same reason you didn't get hired, and we have to answer to the community. I said, so I'm really thinking of considering putting on board policy or putting an agenda item on there so where we can change the, as you say, the authority that you have to appoint at will, or to delegate it to others to appoint at will and reassign. Because we have to take care of our staff. And a lot of our staff got hurt. A lot of our staff did. They were told one thing, they were told another, and then now they're being told another tonight. I said, and some of them are still losing money, some are still, getting deductions, and some of them just didn't have a fair chance. And I'm just letting you know that here publicly, that I think I'm gonna put that on there, and then I'm gonna ask the board for support for that agenda item. Because that's our responsibility as a board too. It's not about who gets hired. It's about the fact that they had a chance. And in this situation, like I said, some people didn't.
And I guess we need to look at all scenarios, right? Is it common practice for a new principal to handpick their secretary? I don't know if that is or it has been. Head coaches, if they want to handpick somebody, to fill one of their positions, I guess we need to look at the whole picture as to where, if we're going to be consistent, be consistent across the board, with, any area where positions are being handpicked. So.
I'd also like to add with that is that we have a situation right now where we have teacher vacancies and we have to hire teachers, right? So I don't have the authority to hire those teachers. So what happens is that they go somewhere else because we have to wait for a board meeting to be hired. So and I understand given this situation that you're inclined.
Call the meeting. I mean, I've talked to admin too. They've been wanting to hire teachers quickly, and they said we have to wait till the 16th. Well, if you tell us, hey, we need you Tuesday and Thursday, I'll be here. I don't think any other board member would deny coming into a special call board meeting to come in. We could do it at noon. We could come in after work. These are all the teachers we need to get on board ASAP. I mean, our campuses have been asking for that since June, July, August. They said they've contacted HR. When are we gonna get a meeting going? When are we gonna get our staff hired? Because they're all scrambling to hire staff before the other, because they're so limited. Remember you mentioned at one time that they're trying to whoever gets them there first.
Yeah.
Principals have been waiting to hire. They said that they've been asking, they've been submitting, that they've been asking, and there's no response. If you tell us, hey guys, we need to hire teachers, we need 4 people here who can make it on whatever such date, I'll be here. I don't go anywhere.
I have no problem with that. Any of us do. Hey,
Call a
let's
special
get
board
together.
meeting and we'll get it done.
Right now, so we know. I don't know about Dr. Jesse.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that? But I don't mind coming in
At any time.
and let's approve them.
Because teachers right now are scarce. You interview them now, they get interviewed somewhere else, their board meeting or special board meeting beats you to it, and then by then they're gone. And so you did all the process for nothing, and that's the frustration some of the campus principals have. They said, we've been trying to get stuff going, but you all didn't meet in July. You didn't want any meeting, we called no meetings in July, and that kind of shot us in the foot too, because we could have been having meetings.
Well, we had one at the end of July, and we hired a bunch
yeah.
of folks in July.
Exactly.
So, we did have,
I know every single board member here, you need 4, they'll be here to get
Yeah, I
teachers
mean,
on
during
board.
hiring season, right now it's hiring season, and,
Yeah.
We
later
understand.
on in the year, it doesn't have to be as much, but right now during hiring season,
Just don't make it 4 hours like this one, but we'll come in, take care of business, and we're gone. Whatever the campuses need, if they need to get their teachers in, just call it up and somebody will show. 4 will show.
Well, that's good to know.
We good?
yes,
Good.
sir.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything, Dr. Corona. And I'll move on to item 5, adjournment.
So move.
It is now 9:08.